Appeals to order.
Sorry, on the recording.
Call the meeting to order, and let us now all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Tom, would you please call the roster? Make sure everybody's here.
Sharon Mayer,
Here.
Jonathan Peterson,
Here.
Daniel Buxa. Here. Lauren Graffin. Here. Stuart Friedman.
Present. All right, the next item on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting, August 10th, 2021. Have you all had an opportunity to review it? And if so, I'll be glad to entertain a motion to accept these minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Stuart.
All right, Tom, would you call the vote, please?
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa.
Yes.
Roland Graffin. Yes. Stuart Friedman.
Yes. All righty, the next item on the agenda is that we have no public preliminary hearings, but we have several public hearings. So I see the first item on the agenda is BZA docket 21-006. Mr. Parth Patel requesting a variance concerning, I believe, his business enterprise Smoothie King. Is Mr. Patel present?
He is.
Tom, before Mr. Patel speaks, is there anything, you gave us a summary of this matter at the last meeting. Do you want to add anything concerning this?
Well, Stuart, may I jump in? I see that the applicant has requested a continuance. Am I reading that correctly? If that's the case, I'll move to continue the hearing for a month.
Oh, I don't see that here in my list, but maybe I don't have an updated list. Oh, I see. Yes, you're right. So is that true, Tom? Has he requested a continuance?
That is true.
Okay, so Mr. Peterson has made a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I will second the motion.
Okay, Tom, would you call for the vote?
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa.
Yes.
Roland Graffin. Yes. Stuart Friedman.
Yes. Okay, the matter is continued to the next meeting. The next item on the agenda is BZA docket number 21-009, Legacy Sign Group on behalf of Marvell LLC, requesting approval of a multiple variances concerning a monument sign at 1750 45th Street in Munster. Tom, is there anything that you would like to present to us concerning this matter before the petitioner speaks?
Yes, this application, this petition came before the Board of Zoning Appeals last month at a public hearing. At the time, it was tabled at the request of the applicant in order to make some revisions to their proposal and bring it in line a little bit more with our zoning ordinance and our zoning standards. If you recall, this was a sign that was presented last month, and at that time they were requesting variances for the overall area of the sign, the height of the sign, the setback of the sign, and then the type of sign. After the meeting, they redesigned their proposal and they submitted this sign, which is shown here on the screen right now. The sign still does require some variances, which are listed out here in the staff report. They're still requesting a variance from the minimum setback from the sign type. Actually, two different standards of the sign type. And then in addition, they're requesting a variance from the size of letters and symbols in our ordinance. Those are shown there on the screen. I'll go through them though, but basically they're proposing to still have a cabinet type of a sign, although it's now enclosed on all sides by brick. They are proposing a plastic face, which is not permitted per our zoning ordinance. We require sign face to be made of brick, stone, or solid metal. And the logo that they have shown here on the sign is at 1 foot 9 inches. We permit letters and logos to be no greater than 1 foot on a monument sign. So that being said, I'll also mention that there's one aspect to the sign that was not noted at the last public hearing, but it is relevant, and that is a restriction that we have in our municipal code, which is separate from the zoning ordinance, that states you have to have a 25-foot clear sight triangle at corners of an intersection for public safety reasons. And that's shown here in this illustration on the screen. I'll just note that because this is not in the zoning ordinance, this is something that the Board of Zoning Appeals doesn't have the authority to waive or to provide a variance to. So in other words, they would have to comply with this standard regardless of the position of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Tom?
No, just that the applicant has also provided some photographs of the existing sign at Sicko Station, in case you haven't seen it in a while, but it is replacing, they are proposing to replace this pole sign, which cannot be altered because it is a pole sign and we no longer permit alterations.
Right, right. Okay, so this is a public hearing matter, but before, I'd like to hear what the petitioner has to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for the synopsis there. Again, to recap, my name is Sean Ensign with Legacy Sign Group at 7933 West Highway 6 in Westville, Indiana. Here again on behalf of Blue Oil on this request. As you may recall, we had 4 different variances. Now, although it seems like a couple more have kind of sprung up here with this new request. So we'll kind of walk through those. Obviously, the setback was kind of addressed. I'm going to, I guess, just remove that off the table. This visibility triangle, which was not kind of known before, has now come upon us as a requirement. Therefore, I don't think the setback is going to matter. So we'll remove the setback request from the variation request in the public hearing. So then to address the cabinet style for this monument sign, a cabinet, I think we kind of talked about it last time, the cabinet's absolutely needed. The price changers, the LED components, the ribbon cables, the controller boards are all encased within their own cabinet. LED lighting elements, wiring for those LED lighting elements, retainers to actually hold the sign faces in, so there's no visible fasteners, are all part of this sign cabinet. Obviously, majority of all the signs you'll see, Munster included, is cabinet style signs. And honestly, with electrical codes, those items need to be concealed within some sort of cabinet. What we did with this specific sign design, though, is try to encase it within brick, so it alleviates more of that cabinet feel. So everything will be contained within the brick base. It does need to protrude slightly to allow for retainers to be removed, and so the components are accessible for servicing.
Okay.
Plastic.
So the petitioner indicated, I'd like to ask the petitioner, you're asking for a variance on the basis of what sort of hardship?
What can you repeat?
What sort of hardship?
Hardship is that the items that we have gone through is that everything needs to be contained within a cabinet. The LED lighting that controls this is all internal. Therefore, it must be contained within some sort of cabinet. I can't just float LEDs in the middle of a brick base. To have this sign still be double-sided and viewable from both sides. Otherwise, you would have brick, and I actually single-handedly mount LEDs to that brick that control a phase that somehow this phase just magically sits there in this brick. So a cabinet is actually truly needed to conceal all these elements and to conceal the structure and conceal these price changers and keep them away from all the weather elements. So there's no damage.
Okay. Are there members of the BZA who would like to ask the petitioner any questions concerning this issue?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Does this sign have a concrete foundation built across? Is that right? I haven't seen the foundation for the sign. Is it a concrete foundation built across?
Oh, yes, for sure, it will be.
And
So
this isn't a thin set brick. This is a full.
it'll be a full set brick over CMU block.
Mr. Raffin, you have any other questions?
No, I don't.
Anyone else from the BZA would like to ask this gentleman have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for one of our colleagues, Mr. Raffin. Roland, you shared with us that you spend time observing similar signs in communities in the western suburbs. What have you observed in terms of gas station signs when you've been out there? I've come away with the impression that there's a number of communities in the western suburbs that have very similar sign ordinances. So I'm curious on your take on what you've observed in terms of how those communities have treated signs like this.
Well, I see a lot of them in the western suburbs that don't have the price changers on there. It's strictly a sign on a masonry thing. I actually brought 2 pictures today because I was out in the western suburbs, and one was a Shell station that just had, a sign. This was more of a cabinet sign though, with the brick. But the BP station had an urban counter and a restaurant, and they had individual letters mounted on there that said BP. It had their logo on there, so that could be made out of any material.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they could see me off the board. So a lot of them in the western suburbs I see in Illinois, the price is on the boards. It's a little bit different of a setup here. We allow LED signs out in Munster for gas stations. I mean, that would be something we have to look at, change the code if we want to get rid of that.
Yeah, in fact, we just this past year changed the code to specifically
Allow that, right?
So
So you'd be allowed, Mr. Peterson, to have the LED in that kind of setting like that. What you'd have to do is go to Citco as some kind of a metal sign logo mounted on the wall with lights that would light up that sign externally instead of internally. If you wanted to make it meter code, is that correct now?
So what we've done is we've permitted a metal face with the logo and the letters in acrylic pushed through the metal face. We do permit channel letters on a monument sign, and we have kind of, as a loose interpretation of channel letter, permitted those push through acrylic letters. We know they're not technically channel letters, but they have the same appearance. And so we permitted those as on a monument sign. The only difference is that in an example like this, you would not have that entire Citgo square illuminated. It would be, the white area there would be opaque, and then only the logo and the letters would be illuminated at night. So it would be individual, each individual element is illuminated rather than having a solid, light box.
So to meet our code, you would have to change the Citgo part of the sign, but the blue LED sign, that would have to be basically permitted, because there's really not another good way to allow an LED sign to be able to be inside that cabinet, inside that masonry structure.
Right, yeah, we've permitted that as that LED portion to be, you know, I guess a cabinet for lack of a better term.
Now, my question, petitioner, is there a way you could change the Citgo sign and keep the LED sign to meet our ordinance?
Well, so I was gonna address that, so we're kind of got ahead. I got kind of stopped as far as the plastic face. We were gonna eliminate that portion of the variance request as well. Again, that was something kind of sprung on with this new review. So we were going to go with a routed style sign face, a metal sign face. I don't know if the client will elect to report with the push screws. Just they do cost quite a bit more style, but they were going to go with the metal routed sign face. So only the copy would be illuminated at night.
Is this an individually owned store or is it owned by Luke Oil?
It's managed by Luke Oil. So Luke Oil manages, they manage the petroleum, the products and everything, but it's individual ownership.
Is Luke Oil the same one we just did the car wash? I think it'd be a good act of faith if they went with more expensive letters. I think there's another property owned in town. It's good oil, right?
I don't believe that was Luke Oil, Roland.
So with that is with the routed sign face is we would still have internally components, those LEDs, those power supplies and all the wiring that controls that, all that being contained essentially within your cabinet.
So it's possible to have the blue cabinet and make the Citgo sign, if the blue cabinet stay with the LED, it's possible to change that Citgo sign to meet our ordinance.
Yes, and really with the blue portion too, that can be routed sign face as well. So just the, like in the design, the REG, UN, the unleaded and the mid grade, that can be routed as well, just back up acrylic. So only those lettering light up, not the blue. And just the LED price changers in addition.
Comment, what would staff's position is that would be acceptable to meet our code?
Well, what we typically ask is if the initial proposal has an initial cabinet or something like the Citgo logo, we ask them to do the face is mounted on there, but it's not a cabinet. So I think what we've seen in other instances is a metal pan face being installed on brick monument rather than a cabinet embedded.
But with the LEDs and the power supplies and the internal structure, they actually hold the sign within that container within the brick. So yes, I get what you're saying. That's kind of a shoebox style that somewhat still kind of protrudes out and kind of looks like a cabinet. And it's like a shoebox lid, but still there's LEDs inside of that that control it. So all those are contained within a housing that seems to be keep calling cabinet, which is understood because that's what it is. All that's contained within that. So yes, it can go with like a somewhat raised metal shoebox style face. That would be acceptable. I would be fine with that. I just need it to be accessible for servicing, so it's got to protrude from the brick somewhat.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem. It would essentially be a metal backer for the. That's what it would be.
And so the client would get on board with it. That would be fine, whether the sign face is contained within a retainer or if it's like a shoebox style lid that's mounted.
All right.
Chairman, if I have this correct, if you were changing the Citgo sign and working with the blue LED sign, would the only variance we'd be looking at tonight would be the 1 9 3/4 Citgo logo? Is that the only one we'd be addressing then? Would everything else meet?
Yes, because they've provided that the sign is moved out of that 25-foot site triangle.
Which that's out of our hands anyways.
Yes, that would be the variance we granted.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
1 9 3/4 sign is a small sign. If it balances out the two of them, I don't have an issue with the two balanced on there. That's the size of the LED. The other one, I don't know what staff's position is, I'm not sure. And it's about this tall, right?
I'm sorry, Roland, I can't hear the last few.
Sorry, I was just saying, the 1 9 3/4 is a small, small little size, like their staff's position. I mean,
I don't think it's, we know that we've talked about running signs.
right.
And we have very tight standards. I don't think this sign is out of character with the area. I would say it's probably smaller than most of the signs in the area.
Across the street in the chains.
Yes,
Right.
substantially smaller than us. So, yes, I don't find anything objectionable about the appearance of this sign, other than that it doesn't comply with codes with respect to that.
Back to the signage, the true cabinet signage.
Right.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, as any other members want to speak before I turn this over for public hearing and hear what the public has to say about this? Hearing nobody else from the BZA, I would now open this matter up for public hearing. Does anyone wish to object or comment on this matter? Tom, do we have anybody in the audience or on Zoom to attend, want to say something?
Actually, looks like we have somebody on Zoom here, Michael G. And Michael, if you can give me your address, we can't have you sign in because you're not present in the room, but
Yeah, Michael Gephardt, 10380 Oxford Place. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, yes. Thank you for identifying yourself. What would you like to say?
Great. So just wanted to say that I really like the new code requirements in the town. You know, the businesses that have been able to comply with that. I think their signs look great. I think the aesthetic is fantastic for the town. So I just wanted to say, voice my support for the new requirements that we have, and look forward to seeing more of these businesses come into compliance with these sign requirements. And I don't think we need these huge billboard signs anymore. We all know where we're going, or we have a phone that can tell us how to get there. So again, just want to voice my support.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anybody else would like to speak who's attended the hearing? All right, then I will close the matter for public hearing. I would only comment before I ask the members of the BZA to vote on this is that in my many years with the BZA, I've seen these gas station signs come again and again and again. This Citgo station has been there ever since I moved to the town of Munster in 1977. And I think that everybody knows that it's there, and it's not absolutely essential that the sign has to be large. This is clearly an improvement over what we have with the pole sign, but we have to address the issue of compliance with the variance and whether there's a justification from varying from the code requirements. So based upon that, I would entertain a motion either approving or denying the petitioner's request. Do any members of the BZA would like to propose such a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, and we're only going to approve the 1 9 3/4 Citgo logo as the only appeal on this motion, and I'll make a motion to approve that.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Chairman, I will second the motion.
All right, then let's, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
Going back to that triangle that was added to the information pack. So does that, Tom, does that mean that they have to move this monument sign closer to the building then to get out of the triangle?
Yeah, they would, yeah. Well, there is no monument sign there right now. What they were proposing, where they were proposing to do it was probably right on the edge of that diagonal line inside the triangle, so they would have to move it to the area outside of that. And that's an approximation using.
So my understanding from the last meeting was that they said they were going to put the new monument sign on top of the foundation from the pole sign. If I heard that correctly. So what you're telling me then is that they're going to have to move this in closer, to the building in that green space. So it won't be going on top of the old sign foundation. It will be a new foundation.
That is correct. So we're going to be basically getting outside that triangle now. Yes, I was previously requesting that setback to reuse the existing steel support there. Obviously would have been concealed, but and the foundation, just not to disturb any further soils and maintain the electric. But obviously I think we have no choice in this matter because of the visibility triangle, that there's no push on that. So we would now have to move that back closer to the building. And then obviously that doing so kind of brings us into compliance on the setback issue for the sidewalk. Now I will add, however, that I'm not sure that the client will maintain it here. It's possible they move it to the adjacent island next to it and maintain the 10-foot setback there.
Which would still be code. Right. Tom, as part of my motion, that I want to make sure that we have proper landscaping around the sign. I don't see it on the drawing.
Yeah, that's a requirement of the code that certain perimeter of landscaping be put on.
And then also, Roland, you might want to add that, when they demo that old pole sign, that they demo the foundation as well.
Well, I would assume that would be code, Tom, that they would have to remove that foundation below grade.
Yeah. So we're there.
All right, so the motion stands as amended. We're amending the motion to require the landscaping. And the person who, forgot who seconded that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I support the amendment.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Chairman, I support the amendment.
Very good. Okay. All right, then I will then now call for a vote concerning the motion. Tom?
Chair Mayor,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman.
Yes. All right, the motion stands and is passed. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Now we have a BZA docket number. Oh, this is the swimming pool, 21-010, Kyle and Jennifer Dempsey, concerning a variance of a fence requirement. Tom, would you like to address this petitioner and tell us whether we have anything new to present today?
Certainly. This is a request for a variance from the requirement for a fence around a residential swimming pool at 9745 Laurel Court. You recall that Jared Tauber, representing the property owners, appeared at a preliminary hearing last month and presented information. I'll just remind the board that we do have a provision in our municipal code. It's separate from our zoning code that allows the Board of Zoning Appeals to grant variances from the specific requirements of our swimming pool code, provided that they that the applicant or whoever is waiving certain requirements provides a substitute that meets the intent of the ordinance, as well as is determined to be as safe as the fencing requirement or whatever other safety requirement there was that they would be waiving. In this case, the applicant is proposing to install an in-ground swimming pool in their backyard. Backyard is fenced on 3 sides. One side is open, and they're requesting permission to not fence that one side and instead install an automatic pool cover as a safety measure. Again, the intent of the swimming pool ordinance is simply to ensure that public health, safety, and welfare is protected, and as well as property values. We talked in our last meeting about the state requirements for swimming pool. I've listed those here in the staff report. Section R326.27.3 of the Indiana Residential Building Code. And I won't read that to you, but essentially what it says is that residential swimming pools have to be either fenced in or, as an alternative to fencing, have a power safety pool cover. And so this particular request is in conformity with the Indiana State Code regarding safety of residential pools. Our code is stricter than the state code in the sense that it requires the fence at all times. So with that, I would say that we do have a representative here, Jared Tauber, representing the property owners, and he actually provided me with a PowerPoint presentation. I'm sure he'd be happy to lead you through it.
Okay, very good. All right. Mr. Tauber, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name is Jared Tauber. I have a law office in Sherrill, Indiana. Also a resident of Munster, pretty much across the street from where this property is at. I also have my client, Kyle Dempsey, here with me, who's the homeowner. And I appreciate Tom giving you a synopsis of our petition here tonight. And can I pull this off? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pull off the mic because I'm going to go up to the smart screen, and because Tom wouldn't go through my PowerPoint for me, so I'll slide through it and it'll be fine. If at any time you have any questions, feel free to jump in. Oops, yeah. First off, this address is 9745 Laurel Court. It's a single family residence. As stated, the petitioner is planning to construct an in-ground pool with an automatic cover. Section 26-159 of the Munster Municipal Code prohibits outdoor swimming pools without a fence. Next slide, I tried to show you without telling you like we did in the preliminary hearing. We have on the left here, which is a survey of the platted land, which shows the 3-car attached garage and the 2-story home on this property. And I think what's important about this property and what's unique about it is that this is in a keyhole over close to White Oak Estates. There's no through driveways or through streets on this particular keyhole. So the only traffic that would come down this area would be the people that live here or anyone that's coming to visit. And then on your right, if you can see, I have in here an aerial of the Dempsey household, and to show you basically the fencing around his house. I did it in whiteout so you could see it pretty good. If you can't see it, I apologize. But as you can see, about 80% of Mr. Dempsey's backyard is already covered by fences on 1, 2, 3, 4 separate properties. And so we'll go through some photos after this, but you'll see that there's 4 different types of fencing behind Mr. Dempsey's house as it is right now. On the next slide, on your left, you're going to see, this is the east side of Mr. Dempsey's property. So there's a privacy fence that goes all the way to the back. And then along the south side or rear of his property, you have white picket fencing on 2 separate houses, along with some arborvitaes that he has in his backyard. And then this is shooting the other way, so facing west. The white picket fence continues, and then you have a privacy fence in the southwest corner of his property. And then along the west side of his property is another type of fence that his next door neighbor has in. These next photos I wanted to show you are actually the front of Mr. Dempsey's house. So on the left, this is the east side of his house, facing his house. You can see there's probably, I'm just guessing, about a 10-foot gap to get to his backyard that is not covered. And then on the west side of his house is his driveway that goes all the way to the backyard with a basketball hoop and a playground in the back. And that's his son Graham in the background. Sorry about that. But that is essentially the opening on the west side of his property to get to his backyard. I think another thing that's important is the way that this pool is going to be sitting behind his house. You're not even going to be able to see his pool from the street. So anyone that was even driving by, if they didn't know the Dempseys, they wouldn't have no idea that there's a pool in his backyard. And as Tom stated earlier, there is a sort of a loophole in the developmental variance ordinance with Munster, and it's important. It's an important one, and that's if you have a reasonable alternative and it does the job of what the ordinance wants it to do, then that's another reason for us to be granted a variance. And in this case, and I'm going to show you, if you're not familiar with these automatic covers, I have a video. I think it's on the next slide, and hopefully it plays for you guys and it can show you just what these covers do. So Tom, if you could try and play it. It's just a few minutes.
Tom, are we able to see this video on the computer screen or no?
Hold on a second. Well, have you guys not been seeing this? Probably not sharing on the same screen.
Speak a little louder, Tom. I can't hear you.
Yeah, Stuart, did you see any of that presentation?
I can see
No.
now much better. Well, I can see. I can't see on the video, but I can see you're not nice and big. That's for sure.
All right, so you didn't see that presentation, but it's unfortunate to see it. Now can you see this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you're going to go through that presentation again.
Yes, that I saw. This part, yes. I have that. I saw that on paper. Yeah.
Okay, can you see this video now?
Now I can.
Okay.
Just to put the cover on. Mhm.
Well, technology.
There's actually an ad with an elephant on it.
So I have a question for Mr. Talbert, if I may.
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
So the wording everybody has is automatic pool cover, but as I understand it from the last hearing that we had, that the owner has to push a button or do something to close the pool. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the way that this, well, he's going to show you if we can get the video going, but there's a control that's up towards the house, and it's locked by a key. And so the only people that would have access to the key are the parents. And yes, they have to manually press the button and hold it down for the cover to open and close.
Okay.
That's okay. Yeah, this is just a gentleman demonstrating. He's actually on top of the cover now. So these covers are meant to hold people up so no one can fall in, pets, kids, any grown-ups, anyone. So there's really there's a dual purpose to them. They keep your pool clean, they keep it heated better, but most importantly is the safety measure for them. And I think he's going to show you right now how you actually open it. So he's pressing the button now and the pool cover will retract. And then when anyone's done swimming, you go back to the button, push it, and it'll close the pool. I did get some more information for you guys from the preliminary hearing on the type of cover. It's called a Cover Star automatic cover. It is very durable. It's got heat seal webbing around a bead and weld in the cover in one step. Independent lab tests show that Cover Star's webbing is over twice as strong as their competitors. These automatic covers are very expensive. And I believe one of the reasons they get charged that much is because in a lot of areas, they do replace fences, and we all know how expensive fences are. So they're made from specially formulated heavy-duty vinyl fabric for superior product performance. Ultraviolet protection, chemical resistant, mildew resistant, fabric strength, tear resistant, abrasion resistant, admittable fabric shrinkage. Does anyone have any questions on the type of cover that Mr. Dempsey is going to install or any of the safety measures?
Mr. Tauber, I have a question. So explain to me what happens in the winter. The pool is emptied and this cover goes on top of it?
I'll let Mr. Dempsey answer that. I believe that's the case.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. The pool will be emptied and the cover will stay on for, with the water filter on top for extra weight.
He has to speak to the microphone. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, there's a pump that comes with it. So anytime you close it, you're supposed to put the pump on top in case any water gets on it.
And Mr. Tauber, what happens? We have, of course, lots of snow. If there's snow on top of that cover, that cover can withstand all of that snow, the weight of it.
This cover is probably on 75% of all pools in our area now. Any new pool that goes in, typically an in-ground pool is going to have a cover like this.
So if there's 20 feet of snow on the cover, it will not penetrate.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, who would like to ask some questions? Members of the BZA?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Palmer, what's the lifespan on now? What's the product like? 20 years, okay.
20 years. I also provided the board, the Dempseys went around to their neighbors to make sure that everyone was okay with their proposal and their petition, and we have signatures from 10 of their neighbors that are in support of their petition. So I wanted to provide that to you to show that the property adjacent to theirs, there's not going to be an adverse manner to those. I also wanted to provide the board, I drove around, I found 2 houses in Munster that currently have electric covers with no fence. One of them's on Rosewood. It does have a fence about 80% around its house. And then there's one on Megan Way that has no fence, is right on a busy road. Anyone can see it. And there's no fence there. So I understand I think from Tom that they're supposed to be putting a fence up. It's been there for over a year. And I've never heard of them ever having a problem.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to ask a question, Mr.
Sure, go
Tauber.
ahead.
Mr. Tauber, what is the reason why the homeowner doesn't want to fence? It's my understanding there's fences around 80% of the property. What's the reason the homeowner just doesn't want to complete the fence?
It's just not practical. as I stated, there's 4 other different types of fences around his property. And if you take a look at the picture I sent on his driveway portion of going into the backyard, there's a lot of concrete there, and it would really be, it would almost be like a jigsaw puzzle fence to try and go around the concrete to get that enclosed. And with the playground there and the basketball hoop, it just really doesn't make sense for him to have a fence there.
Can you pull that up and point that out to us from your report, please? So I can see specifically what it is you're referring to.
I think it's up something.
Okay.
Right
that's
here on the
photo.
right side. I mean, I don't
Okay,
even
so-
know where he would connect it to his neighbors, because their fence doesn't even butt up to his property, to be honest.
So Tom, could I, Mr. Chairman, could I direct the question to Mr.
Yes.
Vanderwood?
Yes.
So Tom, if the homeowner were to complete the fence, what would be required? What would they have to do? I'm looking at the white, the white, it's my understanding, Mr. Tarver, that the whiteout strip represents existing fence, right?
That's correct.
So, Mr. Vanderwood, what would the ordinance as it stands require that the homeowner do?
They would have to install a 6-foot fence connecting to those other fences in some place so that the pool was completely enclosed
On 2 sides.
on the sides that are not already enclosed by the fence.
So what that would mean is, I'm looking at the photo on the screen. You've got a fence that comes up to their, what is effectively their driveway. How far down the driveway would they have to build a fence? And then would they have to actually cross the driveway and connect with the building on that side? Is that what's contemplated? Or would they have to bring the fence around the back of the driveway and close it off there?
Mr. Chairman,
Either
can I
way,
make a comment?
Yes, yes. Go ahead, Sharon.
So just from looking at this site plan, do you, Jonathan, do you see the dimension, the 28-foot dimension that goes from the property line on the left over to the 3-car attached garage wall? Do you see that 28-foot?
talking about this.
Now go down closer to the, right there, that one.
Right, yeah, right
That-
there.
To me, just looking at this, it looks like to me that would be the place where you would make the most sense to put that piece of fence. It would be basically behind where the basketball hoop is in the picture.
Okay, I get it. So that made sense to me. So that would be one option. And then on the right side of the photo, they'd have to bring the fence around at some point and connect it with the house. And it seems like maybe where it angles in,
Yeah, where the 10-foot dimension is.
yeah, where that 10-foot dimension is, you'd put the fence there,
Right.
right?
Right, and you know, when we were talking about this last month during the preliminary hearing, you know, you're basically looking at under 50 feet of fence that they, you know, would have to put up to basically, you know, safeguard the area. So I hear what they're saying, you know, that you know, they're willing to spend a whole lot more money on that pool cover than what 50 feet of fence would cost. You know, and I struggle with this. I really do. But
And thank you. And Jonathan, do you want to add anything before I want to give some comments too on this?
If I could,
Well, one other observation, if they were to fence in along the back of, I'm on the left side of the photo behind the basketball hoop. They put the fence there. Tom, they would certainly be permitted to put a gate in that fence, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Oh, okay. I have no further questions.
So, Mr. Talbot, I mean, I attended the University of Miami school, so I grew up in law school with many, many swimming pools and many, many homeowners and the issues of attractive nuisance. I understand that you don't consider this to be an attractive nuisance, but I still have trouble, and I guess I'm just too old-fashioned, probably like your father, that this is a automatic pool cover. They use the words automatic loosely. I mean, this is all dependent upon the homeowner pressing the button to close the cover. Where if a fence is put in, at least we have a fence that's there over the last 50 feet or whatever, whatever we were talking about. And from my perspective, it's a lot less expensive to have a fence, and I think it's a lot safer. It's great to have this brand new pool cover, but I am concerned that somebody is going to bring a grandchild to visit some family home, and the grandchild may take a walk. It's not improbable. And if that cover was open and that child walked in the back, there's nothing to stop that child from walking back and into the pool. And this is my concern with the whole concept.
Mr. Chairman.
So frankly, I would be not in favor of this variance at this point.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm gonna bring up a little story of a family friend in Ohio. He's our family doctor in Ohio, and he had twins, and he had a fence around his pool. His twins were 3 years old. The one twin got out one day while his mother was watching their kids and fell in the pool and drowned and died. The fence didn't do anything when it came to that. If they had a pool cover like this and it was shut, there's no way that Dr. Toplov's son would have died in that pool that day. So a gate can be open, a pool cover could be open. Either way, that's up to the pool owner to make sure a gate shut or a pool cover shut. But a pool cover, when shut and locked, is a lot better, in my opinion, than having a fence.
And your point is well taken, but again, it has to be shut and locked. And that's the concern that I have. But these are just my comments for the
Mr. Chairman,
BZA.
I have a question for the petitioner. Of the 3 or 4 properties that border the petitioner's house, do any of them have children,
The neighbors to our west have high school kids, Mr. Butza, and the neighbors to our right have children.
So they're being very familiar with the fences, could easily hop over the fences from their own yard into your yard.
Well, I don't think a fence is going to.
That's what I'm suggesting. That's what I'm suggesting, that your neighbor's kids could easily hop the existing fences.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, what I would just respond to you is you suggesting that Mr. Dempsey put a fence up in lieu of an automatic cover makes this a more dangerous situation than what a pool cover would have on there. So I really want you to think about what you proposed.
Who is speaking now?
This is Mr. Tauber.
Mr. Talbot, I did not say that the fence, would be put up and just that. I have no problem with having a pool cover and the fence. But at this point, that is my position. That's basically what I have to say. I'm giving you my opinion as to the situation. Right now, we have an ordinance in effect, a code in effect, and your client is proposing to have a swimming pool with this automatic cover, which is fine, but he does not want to put a fence around the entire thing. And that's what he's before us in requesting. So I just think that a pool cover of it on its own is not the absolute protection that it is. That's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question for Mr. Tauber. I'm looking at page 24 of the PDF package, which is the sign off of the neighbors. Mr. Tauber, where do you have the two neighbors right next to the house? Have they both signed off on this?
I can't hear him.
Carol Matrakis is the next door neighbor.
9740.
And then who's the other next door neighbor?
Ella, I think, Danny, 9740.
Tala Hadadin.
All right, so that, well, wait, they're both, oh, you're on a cul-de-sac. Okay, that's why you've got it goes from odd to even, right? But those are,
Those are right next door.
those are the two neighbors on either side of the petitioner's home, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And just my last point, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Mr. Chairman, this is probably the only town in Northwest Indiana that has this requirement. You go to Crown Point, you go to Highland, you go to Briar Ridge. None of those communities require fences when you have an automatic cover. So I'd like just to put that on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Taub. Anyone else would like to speak on this? I think that this is a public hearing today, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Tom?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I'd like to next open it up to the public for a comment. Is there anyone attending that would like to speak from the public concerning this matter?
Stuart, I'm not seeing anyone.
All right, then I will close the matter to the hearing to the public and bring it back to the BZA. What would you like to do?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to grant the variance, including the use of the automatic pool cover.
Mr. Chairman, I will second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Sharon Mayer,
I'm going to vote yes, but I have to say that the only reason that I'm doing so is because the state of Indiana allows it.
Mr. Chairman, I think a motion to table is a privileged motion. There is a considerable amount of concern that has been raised by the board. And quite frankly, with some of the information that was presented here this week or tonight, I personally would like some additional time to consider this. So I'm going to make a motion to table this. And Mr. Wickland, you can chime in. I think that's a privileged motion that can be made even though there's a motion that's been made and seconded.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson, my understanding of parliamentary procedure is that once a motion has been duly seconded and the roll call is taking place, that a motion to postpone or table would be out of order.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Buxer. All right. So we're back to the motion at hand. A vote on the motion at hand, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So considering Mr. Peterson's comments, do the makers of the motion wish to withdraw the motion at this time and consider a motion to table, or do they want to proceed with the vote?
The mover would like to proceed with the vote.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you unless you speak to the mic directly.
The mover would like to proceed with the vote.
Okay, very good. All right, then Tom, call for the vote.
yes, Mr. Peterson,
I'll vote yes.
Dan Buxell,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman.
No.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you all for your time.
Okay, Next on the agenda, I think we have discussed everything that we were supposed to discuss. Unless there's any additional items that the BZA would like to bring up. We have our next regular meeting on the 12th of October. Is there any members of the BZA who would like to bring anything else up?
Mr. Chairman, you move to adjourn.
I'm sorry.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Second, all right, Tom, please call for the vote.
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman.
Yes. Okay, my meeting is adjourned. I'll see everybody next month.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Here.
Brian Specht,
Present.
Chairman Baker.
Present. All right, we have a forum. Next up is the approval of minutes from August 10th, 2021. Any modifications, changes, motions? What say you?
I would just make a minor clarification that the next meeting was supposed to be September 15th. Was that change made in the minutes, Tom?
I made those in the minutes that are here, but the ones that are posted still have that error.
Okay, very good. Nothing else. I would move that we accept the minutes of the August 10th meeting.
There's a motion and a second.
Second.
And a second, any discussion? Your rule says roll call vote. Mr. Vanderwood.
Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Gardner,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Brian Specht,
Yes.
Chairman Baker.
Yes. Moving right along, next up is a preliminary hearing. Mr. Wickland, I have 3 docket numbers here. Do I have to do each one individually, or can these be done as a package?
It can be done as a package because I think they all relate to the same thing.
That's correct. These have been bundled together because they're essentially 3 actions that need to be taken for a single project. I can go through those now if you'd like.
Sure, as a preliminary hearing, we're just setting this up as a preliminary hearing. You got docket 2112, 2113, 2114, a plan unit development amendment, a commercial subdivision preliminary plat, and a development plan approval for hospitality project services at Lake Business Center PUD, and approval for the second re-subdivision of Lot 1 of the Lake Business Center subdivision, and approval of the development plan to permit the development of a home to suites hotel at 9200 Calumet Avenue, the Lake Business Center PUD. Mr. Vanderwood.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize. I'm looking at it here on the agenda. I don't see my actual staff report being posted. Let me pull that up. I know I had some trouble posting this because it's such a large file. Let me explain some of the confusion on some of the numbers here.
I have it. Do you want to read it off this computer?
Is it on the?
No, I downloaded and got prepared for this, as you told me I needed to do for the last 10 years.
Okay, maybe it is there. I'm not seeing it.
I also don't see it online.
Oh, here it is.
It's somewhere in there.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was the first one posted. Yeah, this was an extremely large file, so I had difficulty posting it to our agenda page. What you have before you here is 3 applications. This is a preliminary hearing for all of them. Hospitality Project Services is requesting an amendment. So you already read that. Essentially, what they're requesting is approval to construct a Home 2 Suites hotel at 9200 Calumet Avenue, which is located in the Lake Business Center. On page 2 of your staff report here, you'll see the location within the Lake Business Center. You're all familiar with this area. This is the property bounded on the north by the Cambridge Court condos. Walgreens is here, True Barbecue. And then on the south, this is the Pepsi plant, and this is Calumet Avenue. This entire area is called the Lake Business Center Planned Unit Development. It was approved as a PUD many years ago by the town, and then it's been amended various times. Initially, it was amended to sort of change the overall concept from a lifestyle center to more of a mixed-use campus. And then most recently, it's been amended to add these outlots here in the corner. This is where there's some fast casual restaurants. This area in the north west corner has been, it's in the process of being purchased by the applicant in order to develop it as a Home 2 Suites hotel. It's currently a vacant field. It has an underground detention pond located in it. And the master plan for the Lake Business Center PUD, which is shown here, has set aside this area as a parking lot. So what they're proposing to do is, as I said, purchase that property, subdivide it into a separate lot, and construct a hotel on it. Pretty good rendering here. There's a lot of information in the staff report, and I imagine it was a lot to process over a weekend. But essentially, they need to, as I said, amend the planned unit development because it's not currently showing a hotel. They need to re-subdivide the property, and then they're also seeking approval of the development plan. So those are the three actions that would be required by the plan commission. And tonight's preliminary hearing. So I would suggest that we ask the applicant to come forward and present their plan for the area.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Vanderwood before we ask for the applicant to tell us what's going on? All right, please state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Darcy Cullen with 3939 Priority Way South Drive, Indianapolis 46240. I have with me Sam Miller, architect with Cripe, working on this project as well, and then Hospitality Project Services. It's Jim Dora and Barbara Bob Armstrong are with us tonight as well, so we can answer any questions that you may have. Like Tom said, this is proposed in the northwest corner of Lake Business Center development. It's going to be a 1.489 acre development with a 4-story, 107-room hotel, 21 parking spaces, sitting on top of the underground detention storage system. And then we propose to share 58 spaces with the Homewood Suites to the east. Hospitality Project Services owns the Hampton Inn, the Homewood Suites, and will also own this Home to Suites, this series of hotels along this area. And then propose to share 55 spaces, I believe, with the parking to the south. We have performed the parking analysis for Tom's request, and it appears that the PUD in general is short spaces, but we won't create any additional shortages with the analysis that we did with the uses that are out there. The site and the architecture conforms to the zoning.
Particular.
Did you combine these all into a single file?
Yeah, there are a few different files.
So the architectural renderings are in a separate file. The construction documents were all in that one that you look like you're showing. That's the beginning of the construction documents. So I was finding that we have a few questions from the site review committee that we still have to answer in regards to drainage in this area. But we have committed to upgrading the lift station that the underground storage system empties to, and then running the calcs for that to ensure that there's the capacity of the system as well. So you can see the 4-story building, and I'll let Sam describe the building for you.
Sam Miller, Cripe Architecture. So it's straightforward. Materials conform to Munster's zoning ordinance to include 2 different colors of brick and horizontal bands, limestone around the entirety of the base of the building, and then limestone there in the tower with the windows, as you can see. Metal panels accent the fascia and then terminate the sides of the building. Then full face of the street, all fully enclosed. The entrances on the east, for the adjacent parking, we have dedicated pedestrian passage from the area to the south. It's marked with signage. Same thing on the parking on the east. So pedestrians can safely park in the building. And I think that gets the basics.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, bring it back to the board. All right, Tom, I have a couple of questions. First of all, are we talking about the entire PUD or just chopping off this one section? Obviously, from the narrative, there's a parking discrepancy here, and across the parking lot from this is the back end of that huge warehouse with semi trucks going in and out. Is all of the ingress and egress for this particular proposal going through the back of Walgreens?
Why don't I just pull up this, here and see.
And then also my other question while you're looking for Google is what impact is the additional roadway that was proposed for the other developments and going under the train to access the Lansing Country Club site going to have an impact on this segment of this particular site?
Okay. So to answer your first question, what they're proposing to do is make improvements to this site. The project does not include any improvements to the internal roadway network of the Lake Business Center. It has access through this private road network to Fisher Street through here and then to Calumet on the east here. So that would be the access points for it. With respect to any connection between this project and the proposed development at the Lansing Country Club, I would say that the developer of Lansing Country Club is aware of this project. There's currently no plans to make any kind of connection between the Lake Business Center and the Lansing Country Club. So there's no connection point there. There are certain traffic projections that have been developed for the Lansing Country Club. Those don't take into account this development.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other question that you asked was about the parking. And there is as Darcy mentioned, this entire development was built on the assumption and actually not the assumption, but the guarantee that it would all be shared parking. So there are different uses in the PUD, but they all share parking. As I stated, this area is shown in the plan unit development as a parking lot. And it's currently not a parking lot because you see it's grass. So it's not being used as parking. They're proposing to add some, I believe 21 parking spaces on the site, and then the remainder of the parking would be here. So
Is that going to be included as a part of the parcel for the hotel? Or are they just going to do that shared parking easement as the parking for that proposed hotel?
So the way that it's being proposed is that would not be part of the parcel that gets separated out, subdivided out. They would have to, as I said, the planned unit development includes shared parking. However, with the separation of ownership, I would suggest that there be some kind of parking easement or agreement between the two property owners as far as permitting this parking to remain on site. I could say just anecdotally that this is not a heavily used parking lot, but the
How many
future.
square feet is that? 750,000 square feet for the warehouse.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
there's
the
a lot
use
that could be
change,
done.
the use changes and becomes more medical or whatever. Would the hotel be okay if those 27 spots were taken by the 750,000 square foot warehouse?
Well, I think that's a good point, and yeah, I think that that's one thing that we should take a close look at and ensure that we have some kind of guarantee, either an easement or an agreement that guarantees that those spots would remain there
The Homewood Suites Hotel also has enough parking for 214 rooms. It has 99 rooms in it. So there are 58 spaces, I believe, available to share with the Homewood Suites to the east as well. So we're half Homewood Suites and half basically the industrial building parking as well.
But is there also a shared agreement with the Homewood Suites with the rest of that development?
Yeah, it's the same ownership. Hospitality Project Services owns all three of those
They don't have
hotels.
750,000 square foot warehouse. Is there a shared agreement with the Homewood Suites and the warehouse that has 750,000
Yes,
square feet?
yes.
Right, so I think the entire development, it has shared parking. And I can find that. Yeah. This is actually, this image is taken from that shared parking tabulation. And on this document, which was approved by the Plan Commission as part of the planning and development, it lists out the required parking for each use. And as Darcy said, the development is short of what the minimum number of parking spaces would be.
By how much?
It's actually stated here.
492, I believe,
How many?
492.
So the development is short 492 spaces right now.
Everybody walks though, right?
With the hotels interested in building a parking garage there, if it became a 4-story parking garage.
Right, so it's currently short by if every use were to have the minimum number and we didn't have the shared parking arrangement, it would be short by currently 369. With the addition of the hotel, you're eliminating 112 spaces, which were never there to begin with. But so the actual deficit is 480. So that is based on each use having a sufficient number of parking spaces for itself and not having shared with everybody else. So development was designed purposefully and approved with the understanding that there was a shortage of parking overall, but together with everybody sharing each other's parking, it would be fine.
But it was also approved as a transit-oriented development based on where the location of the train was being forecasted when that was done. So those assumptions are mute anymore, in my opinion. I mean, I like this plan the way it was originally approved. Is that going to happen?
Well, the Hilton Grand Standards requires 1 parking space per room. And the town requires 1.25 parking spaces per room. So with that difference in parking between Hampton and Homewood Suites and the lesser rooms that hotel was developed for and the quantity of parking, they could have shared. And then if the uses by the times of day change, then there should be some parking available for the hotel guests that tend to be more evening instead of daytime.
Tom, what was Munster's population last census? 23,000. How many towns? 23,000 and 5 hotels.
I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Chairman, I originally in the PUD, there weren't 2 hotels, and I know that was a special for the Homewood Suites as well, was a special approval, correct? And the one issue that I keep seeing when I look at the aerial, the thing that really pops out to me is Cambridge Court. To get another 4-story looking into it's a residential area, and we've got the Hampton and the Homewood Suites, and then a third one, we're basically, they're practically being surrounded by hotels that are, and when the people are there, it's at night. So I don't know, privacy, it seems like we never intended for that PUD. There was a reason why we didn't have like a 4-story something right there next to the residential.
Yeah, I'll just mention a couple things. One, to Bill's point, yeah, when I sort of went back to look, so there's a couple of things here. Planning and development, as I mentioned, that's like similar amendments to planning and developments. That's a recommendation that will be developed by the plan commission and forwarded to the council. Final approval or denied. When we typically look at planning and development, we look at it like a zoning amendment, which is what it is. It's an amendment to our actual standards of that district. So we use a couple of things as our guides when we think about how to evaluate a proposal like this. One of them would be the comprehensive plan. And as Bill mentioned, when our comprehensive plan was completed, this area was contemplated as a transit-oriented development. So there's a actually very detailed concept plan in our master plan for this area. Because there's no train station being planned for that, we don't have a lot of good guidance from our comprehensive plan for evaluating an amendment to this plan development. So really what we would be looking at is sort of the standards that we would use for any kind of to our code. Well, is it protecting the health, safety, and general welfare of our population and our residents? Is it promoting the orderly development of the town? And is it in keeping with the character of the area? So I think those are listed more specifically better in your staff report, but I just want to put this out there that, yeah, this is all this discussion is good. This is purely sort of a decision to be made based on whether or not we believe in the town, and then the recommendation to be given to the town council. With respect to the subdivision, we do have very sort of cut and dry criteria, things that we look at for subdivision. So that's less of a discretionary approval. And then for the development plan, we would be looking at the standards for a planned unit development, which are listed in our zoning ordinance. And those are listed in the staff report. And I'll just say with respect to the second two items that I mentioned, the applicants have done a pretty good job of meeting those standards. But really the question I think before the board tonight is to think about whether or not what you've been kind of describing, does this make sense as a amendment to planned unit development? Does it meet those types of criteria that we have? This general criteria, is this in keeping with the policy direction of the town?
I have a question. You said this group also owns the other two hotels that are adjacent to it?
Yes.
And how old are those two hotels? Ish.
It's Helmut Suites 2012. Jim Dora with Hospitality Project Services can tell you that and provide you some information on their occupancy in the last couple of years.
Perfect, because that's my question, Jim.
Yes, thank you for that question, and thank you all for allowing us to present. My name is Jim Dora. I have several companies, a management company, General Hotels Corporation. We've been working in the state of Indiana since 1962, when my father and his brother started the business in Terre Haute. We have Hospitality Project Services, which is our construction arm. So I don't have the exact dates on the Homewood Suites. The Homewood Suites, if you remember, was a stalled project. The construction had started and it kind of stalled. We got involved and we were able to get that project finished. And then also took ownership of the Hampton Inn at the same time. The Hampton Inn was a little bit older. It was the original hotel. So we just did a major renovation there. So it's got to be 10 plus years old or so, the Hampton Inn. And so the Homewood is now probably 4-ish years old, I think. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't have the exact date. I didn't anticipate that question. All of these products are owned by the Hilton brand, Hilton Hotels. So what we have found in your market, and the town of Munster has been a terrific market to be in. And it's not just city customers or town customers that are staying in the hotel, it's also the corporate travel coming through here. So as an example, in 2019, which was one of the very high highs in the hotel business, the Homewood Suites Hotel ran 90% occupancy The Hampton Inn ran 82% occupancy for the year. Those are substantial numbers. In 2020, which was the worst year in recorded history of the hotel business, the Homewood Suites ran 74.2% occupancy, and the Hampton Inn ran 66.1% occupancy. Most of the national averages for hotel occupancy were in the 40% range. So that was substantially better. These were consistently our two best operating hotels throughout the state during the entire year of COVID. And that's just a factor of people who were needing to travel and needed an extended stay property or suite property, whether they were working in hospitals or working in some of the factories, tooling, et cetera, came and stayed at our hotels. So, don't think that just because you have a population of 23,000 people, that you're not bringing in a lot of outside money and tax dollars from people who are traveling and staying in those hotels. We've recovered nicely coming out of pandemic up here, June 20 to December 20, even as the pandemic continued on. The Homewood Suites ran 82.6% occupancy, and the Hampton Inn ran 73.6% occupancy. So they are very, very consistently strong hotels, and a majority of days of the year we're full at both hotels, and we don't have the ability to take care of that customer. So if they're a Hilton travel customer, a loyal Hilton customer at any points, they're going to go find another Hilton branded hotel somewhere close in the market. So we want to capture that so that we don't lose those rooms and we don't lose that tax base in the town of Munster. They will go someplace else. The other thing that happens is the hospitality brands, the Hiltons, the Hyatts, the Marriotts, they have multiple sub-brands as we have here. Their goal is to sell franchises and get hotels built. So, our goal would be to build this hotel here, but if we're not able to pull it off, somebody will get that Hampton or the Home2 franchise and build it in another location. So we want to be able to capture it in this location if we can. It gives us a little bit of extra leverage with hiring and staffing because we're able to cross-train people across the hotels so that we can keep people busy, keep them with full-time, 40-hour work weeks, et cetera, because we'll have a higher room count. We're going to need probably another sales manager or two. So we're going to be able to add people besides what you would just have in a normal hotel situation because we have 3 hotels, and that gives us that leverage of rooms to absorb some higher costs so that we have a higher sales effort, et cetera. So it's a very good opportunity for the hotels here. We hope it's a good opportunity for the city. It's been great operationally for us, and we've enjoyed working in the town. We hope we have the opportunity to do another deal here and keep that base in your town versus letting it escape from us.
Questions for this young man?
Thank you, Mr. Dora, for the description and some of the background. So appreciate the performance, how the adjacent hotels have been doing. I'm curious as we're looking at this, the request is an amendment to the planned unit development. So in order to make that amendment, we ought to have a compelling reason from the perspective of the town and the residents. You've given some detail, but could you maybe speak to the benefits to the town and the benefits to residents? Councilor Millen has talked about some potential drawbacks to the residents who live just across the way.
Sure. Well, I think benefits to the town would be that it adds to the tax base for the city. It will create more availability for hotel rooms within the city. So locally, if there's a local citizen who needs that hotel availability, there's a better chance that it will be open at the time of their need. These are select service hotels, so we don't have a restaurant in the evening. We don't have a bar in the evening. We typically have a social hour just for guests. So, we serve an evening snack and usually beer and wine. But we're not an outside bar, so we're not going to be bringing people in, creating that kind of noise. We're also not going to be taking that business from another restaurateur in the city, but we're going to be bringing people in who may not want an evening social hour type snack, they may want dinner, so they're going to go and find a local restaurant. We're going to hire more people, so that's always good for any city to be able to have more opportunities for people to go to work. We've been around for a long time. We work very hard to promote from within. So I would tell you that every one of our managers currently is somebody who's worked their way up through our operations. So we do that a lot. We are an industry that if you have no skill set, but you have a desire to work, you can come in, you can learn the hotel industry from the ground up and become a general manager. It happens a lot in our business and in our company. So I think that offers an entry level opportunity for people who may feel they don't have it. We also need professional skill sets like HVAC. We typically can't carry that on our payroll because it's such a specific skill set. So we're going to be needing to hire local contractors to do some of that maintenance work, etc. Just the general supply chain of food, linen that's purchased and brought in, those other things, drives extra supply chain business throughout the town. So we touch a lot of different people that aren't necessarily working at the hotel, but are part of that support system. And that just continues to trickle through any place where we are.
You could also talk to some of thank you for, that was quite a good list, I think, helped me visualize the impact of the hotel there. Can you talk about some of the drawbacks maybe, or things you've experienced with complaints you have from the other hotels on the property?
I am not aware of any specific complaints that have come from the hotel. We work pretty hard to keep control of our customers who are coming in. You can't always control who comes in, but with the occupancies that we're running, we're driving at fairly high rate. So we're not going to be a low-rated hotel that might attract more trouble. Probably our biggest thing might be kids running around up and down the halls during the sports weekend and things. But I don't think we've had any problems spilling out that cause a noise complaint by the residents to the rest of us. And I believe there's a pretty decent demising wall of some type between our hotel and that complex. So again, I don't think we've got people coming over there and causing trouble. If we had noise in the parking lot and we hear about it, and we generally hear about it pretty quickly from our own customers, we go out and deal with those kinds of things and just try to keep things pretty quiet. These are quality hotels, and so we generally don't have too many problems like that.
And the price point for the rates for this hotel in comparison to the other two?
It would be comparable. I didn't come loaded with that great question.
Comparable is.
But so typically the Homewood Suites is a more expensive hotel because it is a true 2-room suite. So you've got a kitchenette area, living room, doors into the bedroom and back. So the Home 2 Suites is more of a studio style, where you've got a larger room, but it's all one room, and then they usually have a half demising wall that separates kind of a living space from the bedroom. So in my case, I'm awake early, my wife's asleep, I can be over there on my computer, not bothering her, but yet it's not a true 2-room suite. So the price point would be Homewood Suites generally at the top, and then between the Hampton Inn and Homewood Suites at the top of the rate structure, and then the Home 2 and the Hampton Inn probably be fairly close to them.
There's some Diamond number I pulled up. Home 2 Suites, about 150 a night. Hampton Inn, about 128 a night.
Thank you. So he's gonna be our first customer. He's a dime.
Yeah. What Bill had mentioned is the original contemplation of the planned unit development was 2010, when we thought there was gonna be a train station there. Thought, hoped, hoped it wouldn't come, whatever, many thoughts probably around it. And it didn't come, and we're 11 years later, but now there are 2 train stations coming into town. And I believe that's going to fundamentally change sort of the makeup and how things operate there. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on waiting until some of that develops to see if we can have a better sense as a board for the need for another hotel, or the strains it might put on that area, or just how, let the seeds of the plan, the TBD grow a little bit before we decide to, I heard we're 481 parking spots down right now. And this would require by our zone 113. We're going to add 21 of those. So we're getting close to like 549 or 590 spots that are lower. I understand there's not like a parking issue now, but as Mr. Ruffin said, it could really be if that warehouse is no longer viable and you can put in, what was it, a lifestyle
Or
development,
medical or less.
medical. Sure. So that's just my question. Are you open to waiting to see what happens before requesting it?
Well, I appreciate the question. I think one of the important things to think about with the parking is in a select service hotel such as what we have, so we don't have banquet space, we don't have daytime events going on. You'll see it as you travel. Typically, Hampton Inn and Homewood Suites, the parking lot is empty during the day because customers are all out doing their thing. So we're typically, the parking lot for the hotels are busy after hours when the other businesses within the development are closed for the day. So maybe that helps to balance it out a little bit. The reality is these numbers are so good that I won't be able to convince Hilton to hold the franchise for me. They'll sell it to somebody else and they'll go and develop it because they want this kind of revenue flowing where they get their cut. So
it might be in a different town.
It might be in a different town. And so for us to move forward, and it's a challenge to put a hotel project together. I mean, it's a solid 14, 18 months to get these things done anymore. So there's going to be a little bit of built-in time anyway. But that by allowing it to go someplace else, it then hurts the town's tax base because you won't get it, somebody else will. The interesting thing that you talk about with the train stations, so our Homewood Suites has a van because we offer complimentary transportation, typically in a 5-mile radius from the hotel. So, if there's a customer demand where people are coming in on the train and not driving, well, we've already got a van. Not every hotel has that availability, so we can utilize that van over 3 hotels and try to capture those customers. And as younger travelers come into play, they want to travel in different ways. So we're going to be very cognizant of how we capture everyone and get into our hotels. And we've got a little bit more leverage than, say, a single operator may be able to have to pull that up.
Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of questions and problems and issues that I see with having another hotel in the town of Munster. I mean, you talk about the tax base and all that, of course, that's a benefit. But I look at, a lot of outsiders coming to Munster. Munster's kind of a smaller bedroom community. And I don't know if we want that kind of transients coming to town. I've seen hotels on the south side where I came from before that things changed, neighborhood changed, and hotels became a huge issue. You could look at Lansing, you could look at Cal City, you could look at Dalton, you could go to Hammond. And I don't think we want those kind of issues. Of course, we're lucky because we have a nice community. People do want to stay here. But we also like the smaller feeling of Munster and what it brings to us. So I don't care if someone that wanted to come visit me and the hotels were full in Munster. I don't have a problem telling them to go stay in Cherville. They can still drive to my house 10 minutes away, and then I don't have a problem of a transient group coming to Munster, outsiders coming to Munster, and we have a fifth hotel in Munster that, who knows, in 20 years from now, if that's gonna be a problem for the residents of Munster, because I still intend to be here. So, and I also do worry about that development, and if things change in that development and parking or business gets better inside of that 750,000 square foot box, that development is handicapped because now we just added 150 or 100 new parking places that we need. So I know hotels are special use, and this is a PUD, but I don't think if you put this out to the residents of Munster that they would feel that they would want another hotel in the town of Munster where they could have possible other opportunities on their property later on.
Well, I appreciate that. I would like to say that the brand, the Hilton brand, much like Marriott, is very, very specific on how hotels are maintained. They're inspected on a regular basis, and they require ownership to put lots of money back in for renovations. So that's the one good thing with the performance of these hotels is the capital's going to be available to take care of it.
How long are those agreements though? Are they 10 years or 20 years or a lifetime?
They're 20-year franchises, and when you have a hot market like this with a high barrier to entry, those last a lot longer. And I've been in the business for a while, and I know what you're talking about when hotels go down market. I've experienced that with some of my hotels that I've divested myself from in Indianapolis. A little bit of a different situation. The east side of Indianapolis gets shady, and things were good for 30 years and it gets rough. The nice thing with the town of Munster, because of its size and because of the city and the citizens who care about it, is I think your town's not going to go the way of my experience on the east side of Indianapolis, because you aren't going to let it happen.
But we also have economic challenges that surround the town of Munster, right?
I understand that. And again, all I can tell you is that the market is very strong, and brands will protect a strong market like this by having us put money back into the hotels to take care of it, which is what we want to do, because I'd like to have a hotel, that lasts for a long time. I'm not ready for retirement yet. I'm only 57. I got a long ways to go, so I'd like to have this hotel ready to go.
Okay, Councilman?
Just a quick question, Tom, what capacity or percentage capacity is that Lake Business Center?
As far as,
Again, just roughly, are we experiencing very little parking issues because the Lake Business Center is not occupied? Is it occupied 50%?
that's a good question. I don't think.
Okay, if you could find that out, I think that would help us understand some of the parking issues. And the one comment, I guess, the concern that I would have with regards to also looking at the interior roadways inside the Lake Business Center, especially since a lot of your traffic is going to be at night. And I don't know how well those roads are lit and everything else, especially when we have people parking on the south, walking to the north. I wonder if there's any kind of road improvements that need to take place inside there, or at least lighting, so people can be safe walking across, especially if there's truck traffic going back to the
I can't speak for that right now, but I'm going to spend the night at Homewood Suites tonight, so I'll take a look at that and know what the lighting is.
Chuck, it's a good point. I often take phone calls for my work, walking throughout the town, and that is a tricky, around the corner there to the medical building, there's not a sidewalk on there, so you have to walk on the road. It is, and I mean, it is a tricky parking lot just to walk to Angle.
Okay, Tom, I haven't seen Stuart because I can't see his picture. I don't know if anybody on had a question, but let's all remember, folks, it's a preliminary hearing. We've got a lot more stuff to do, so we get another crack at these folks next month. Stuart, do you have anything?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, entertain a motion, folks.
And I would wish that we make make a motion to schedule public hearings for PC docket 21-012, PC docket 21-013, and PC docket 21014.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second, any discussion? If there none, Mr. Vanderwood,
Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Gardner,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Brian Specht,
Yes.
Chairman Baker.
Yes. All right, thank you, folks. Please take some of those comments in mind, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. For the questions.
All right, folks, next up, we go public hearings. First up is PC 20-009, Guy Costanza, GM Contract, requesting approval of a development plan for a commercial development at 407-411 Ridge Road. Mr. Vanderwood.
Thank you. I will be brief. This project has been before the board a few times over the past few months, and at the meeting last month, staff presented the site plan and reported that the site plan had met all the standards of the zoning ordinance and the varied standards. Thank you for standards that were varied by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And at that time, the only real item that was sort of up in the air was the building architecture. So the project was tabled, and we've had multiple sort of reviews of the building in the past 4 weeks. And some comments have been given to the applicant. They've modified the plans. The plans are here presented as they were submitted last week. And there are comments that I've provided in the staff report of some outstanding issues. First, this relates to the overall appearance of the building. Board of Zoning Appeals had indicated in their variance from the height requirement that they wanted to see a 2-story building. Building presented here is the height of a 2-story building, and it doesn't really appear to be a 2-story building, but it is the height. So that's something that the Plan Commission will have to give some consideration to as to whether or not they think that those conditions are being met. The second item is based on the overall dimensions and proportionality of the building. It was just unclear whether or not they had met the requirements. And I have since received correspondence from the architect that they do in fact meet that. The third item is the requirement that a knee wall be provided for the entire building. That is not being met in this proposal for one section. There's some ambiguity on that requirement depending on the type of building that you're proposing. We don't need it if it's considered an office type of a building. It's considered a retail storefront, and it does. The fourth item was the 20% void areas for the west facade. It says this has not been confirmed. That was since revised. The fifth item is windows on the just confirmation of some window spacing that has been confirmed. And then the sixth item has to do with the placement of the building on the lot. There are some dimensional things that have been added to the building, including some awnings, and the door swings outward. So what we were looking for was confirmation that none of the building would encroach onto adjacent properties or the public right of way in front of the building. And so that's a lot of detail just to get to where we are here. But this was the building as it was presented to us last week. I'll note that those comments that I just went over were sent to the architect, and he has made some revisions, which I do have in my possession. I've reviewed them. I didn't post them to the agenda page because I got them earlier this week. But essentially what my recommendation, the staff recommendation for this project would be to approve to approve it with conditions. Those conditions have actually since been met in revised plans that I have, but are not shown here. So what they've done is they've added some windows to the building. And they've actually pushed the building itself a little to the east and a little to the north to accommodate the awnings that are sticking out and the swing of the door so that it doesn't open up into the public right of way. So at this point, my recommendation with respect to this project would just be to approve it, subject to those conditions that are listed in the staff report. But I'll say that those conditions have already been met in the documents that I have.
All right, any questions for Tom before I turn it over to this young man? Yes, sir. Is there somebody to speak on behalf of this PC docket? Is that you, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, John Reed, Abrahamson, Reed, Bills, Munster, Indiana, on behalf of GM Contractors, that stands up the petitioners here. I don't want to belabor anything. Tom laid it out exactly as it is. We've, it's been a long process, but I think from everybody's perspective, the final product will be a better product than when we started. I think it's an example of a process working correctly. The building is, it's only 2,500 square feet. So it's not a large project, but it is on Ridge Road. And obviously Ridge Road is, a lot of the buildings are getting older and the facades aren't so pretty anymore, but they're, meeting the old codes and things. This building meets all the new codes. It's in compliance with everything. It was, Mr. Turinga did submit the plans to Tom. It did have to be moved. It's like, I think about 2.3 feet to accommodate the awnings not hanging over the public right of way. So it's now, everything's placed correctly, landscape, everything, photometric plan, everything meets code. And without belaboring the point, we would ask for your approval tonight. It would be accommodating to that. This is about getting to the point in the building season where this is it.
It is. There's two seasons in the region, winter and construction. I have one question. The ongoing, just for the young folks here, this is the vacant lot across from Aurelio's we're talking about. So as it relates to the right-in, right-out. So the pork chop that's in there, which is an outstanding solution, but the concern still remains as it relates to people, disobeying the law, which tends to happen once in a while. Is there anything, Tom, that we have from the standpoint of the town that provides a more challenging curb height, for example, to prevent somebody from making that left either in or out of this particular location, since it's going to be right where the train tracks are and right next to the signalized intersection? Other than a regular curb that's like in front of my driveway that I can pretty much go over with my bike.
Good question. I don't recall what the curve is detailed in the plans or not.
So that was my one. Anybody else have a question on it?
It just made me wonder about the streetscape plan. Does that put a median that makes it hard at this particular location?
At this location, there is no median as part of the streetscaping plan. However, the NICD South
This is a
Shore-
right in, right out, so you shouldn't be able to go left anyway, but they're gonna go as soon as they can.
Well, that's why I'm asking if there's.
So they're gonna have to at least make the light and probably do something at the light. Because you can't go left, either in or out.
Will that be other bikes?
Probably, no, they're all walking now, remember?
It's a walkable community.
It's a walkable community.
There will be a barrier median installed in the center of Ridge Road as part of the railroad project. In order to have a quiet zone, there needs to be something installed in the road to prevent vehicles from going around.
It's gonna be even tighter.
I think that'll end up being similar to when you go down White Oak towards Poplar and towards Main Street. That meaning that was to create a quiet zone also. So yeah, the gates will be down, but nobody can do the swerve around it. You got more raptors.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. All right, I'm going to open up the public's segment of this. This is where you can come up and speak for or against, or just provide a little bit of thought as it relates to this particular project. Going once, going twice, closing public section, bring it back to the board. What do you want to do?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve docket number 20-009, subject to final staff review of the building design to ensure compliance with relevant zoning standards listed in the staff report, which I understand have now written that.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Any discussion?
We need to come up with a plan for Ridge Road, an architectural plan, so buildings are consistent and what the town wants to see. I think that's a good thing, you know.
I'm guessing you guys don't want our new.
One second.
No, we got a motion second. I think the building's a nice building, it's gonna look nice on Ridge Road, but we need to come up with some kind of plan of how we're gonna flow redevelopment, and what's gonna look like.
I would echo Roland because this has been very lengthy and has been frustrating for everyone at times. So although the form-based code did get us closer to where we wanted to and made some more parameters, I agree with Roland when we're talking about that bridge corridor. I think we can alleviate a lot of stress for all parties going forward, but I agree it's going to be a nice building.
Yeah, I mean, that would make it much easier for applicants. I mean, you guys have made a Herculean effort to comply with many different requests. I mean, that's much appreciated. I agree. There's a lot of things going on with our sort of comprehensive plan that addresses our major corridors. That's not really germane to this particular case, but I agree. We ought to look at it.
I have no comments.
The motion is second, Mr. Vanderwood.
Councilor Mellon,
Yes.
Councilor Gardner,
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes.
Brian Specht,
Yes.
Chairman Baker.
Yes. Congratulations. Can't wait to see that.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna stay there. I was gonna stay there at the end, which is kind of fun. And I know.
Are you
know,
gonna keep talking?
Yeah, I'm going
Okay.
to. Now that I got my vote, I can say anything I want.
Okay. You're never gonna come again.
You know, I'm doing some law work for the town of Highland now, particularly their redevelopment commission. They have a plan through the use of TIF dollars, excess over the bond reserve fund and bond payment requirements that they use for a facade grant program. So they delineate, the downtown area has been really pretty. It was just all, I mean, the buildings were perfectly nice when they were built. It's just old, really put so much paint on. And what they do is per property, specifically designated streets, if you're gonna spend 60, the maximum they'll give you is 40. It's not a loan, it's just it's tipped out. So if you just do a small area at a time, so you don't get barraged with, 10 people show up tomorrow on 40K each. So you just do maybe a half a block or a block at a time. And, a lot of the buildings on Ridge, I think, if they said, geez, I'd really like to make this look prettier, maybe put up a blade sign or something that complies with the code. For that 40, they can do a lot.
Do they split it? Sure.
Well, what the redevelopment commission does is they'll give you 100% of the 40, but if it goes over 40, it's out. So a lot of people just say, well, if I'm going to spend this, like in Munster, if you're going to spend a bunch of money, you're going to go through the whole site plan. If it's over 10K, which you can't do anything for under 10,000 anymore. So it comes to site plan. That's when you get a chance that let's get the sign up today. Let's do everything. Well, a nice blade sign or proper sign in the new code that's going to eat up a lot of budget. Well, if you got $40,000 laying out there, you can put your arms around. Hey, that's great. And typically the town pays it directly to the contractor, so they know there's no end arounds.
You can see you can see the improvements. I mean, it's like there's some really good looking buildings down there now.
It's block by block, and they're they're trying to do that. They have the parking lot down there, and the facade on the restaurant downtown Highland. That's because of the facade grant program, and that restaurant's been there forever. And now it's like, wow, look, new restaurant. No, it's not a new restaurant. It's been there for 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there, guys. I know you've had a long night. So.
I just wanted to say one thing, like John said. I have 3 other stores, right?
Please state your name, sir, if you're gonna have a conversation and talk to the microphone. Thank you.
And I have 3 other stores, almost right next door to this project. If they had some sort of facade grant, I would be favor of your fine. This stuff is old. And I would be the first to say, hey, I'd love to make them look better, you know, for everybody, for the town, for investments, for rent basis. So I thought John made a very good point. I'd be very interested if that ever came into play. Okay, great. We can talk about that. Fine.
That's good.
Thank you.
All right, next public hearing is PC 2109, 21010, 21011. Subdivision preliminary plat, a development plan approval, and a subdivision final plat for Park Hotel requesting approval of a one-lot subdivision and a development plan to construct a 3-unit commercial building, including a Smoothie King at 8130-8138 Calumet Avenue. Mr. Vanderwood.
Thank you. This project came before the board at preliminary hearing last month. There are 3, similar to the hotel project, there are 3 applications consolidated into one because they all deal with the same application, and that's for the development of a commercial building at 8138 Calumet Avenue. What the applicant Park Hotel is requesting is preliminary plat approval and final plat approval to consolidate the 2 lots, which is necessary in order to construct a building across both of them. And then he's also seeking approval of a development plan. The area in question is here, 8130. So across Calumet Avenue from Panera, there's currently a vacant commercial building on the north lot, which was a former massage parlor, I believe. Building on the south lot, it was a vacant animal hospital. He's proposing to demolish these buildings and redevelop the site with 3,600 square foot, 3-unit commercial building. South tenant has been determined to be a Smoothie King. 2 remaining spaces have not been leased. And he's proposing as well a parking lot with 27 stalls, 27 parking stalls. I'll just pull up the site plan so you can see more about what he's proposing to do. As you can see, the building is situated to comply with our zoning ordinance, which has a maximum setback of 20 feet in the CD4A district. So the building is actually going to be constructed on the east front lot line. Parking area is to be located to the side and to the rear of the building, in keeping with our zoning standards. It will be screened from the right way by a hedge here and here. Access to the site is provided through a shared driveway with the property to the south. There's an existing 20-foot easement in between the 2 properties, 10 feet on each one. And so the plan is to eliminate the curb cut here on the north end of the site and to consolidate access here at the south end, expand this driveway so that it meets our standards for a 24-foot wide drive aisle. And then there's a town alley actually on the west side of the property, 10 feet wide, that will remain clear for cross access easements or for cross access to properties to the north and the south. The lot itself will also be open to the property to the north, and then the alley will be screened with a required 5-foot landscape screening area. The applicant has provided for the development plan all the required exhibits, which would be a lighting plan, a landscaping plan, and architectural renderings, of course, a site plan and architectural renderings. We have reviewed them at staff level and found them to comply with all of the standards of the code. So what he's proposing here is a black and white brick building with black storefront. The necessary base, middle, and cap. And like I said, the landscaping plan complies. It has screening in the required locations at the alley and in the front. And then also proposing to install 2 parkway trees.
Okay,
I'll just mention that he's provided samples of the building materials.
okay. Mr. Patel, would you like to say something?
Yes, keeping of the powers of the board. I just wanted to have you guys actually visually see the brick material that we're going to use. It's hard to recreate the iridescence that's on the opus color that we're going to use, so it's not a true black. Obviously, on the render, it looks more like it's gray, but it's actually going to be sort of like a fish scaly type of black. So we feel that it will give it like a nice contrast, a nice pop. So
Is that this one?
Correct.
Sorry.
No, you're good. And then other than that, as Mr. Vanderwood mentioned, the building does meet all the code and all the standards that are listed in your town code for this development. On the 2 ends, the cornices will be metal. In the render themselves, they're kind of hard to visualize, but they will have some shadow, they will have some overhang. And then in the middle, that will be like a soldier force cornice that we'll be doing. And the brick style, I believe on the original render, it was a utility brick, but to keep it more consistent with what the Chipotle has across the street, it'll more than likely be a modular brick size.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Patel? Mr. Vanderwood, does he have any questions for him?
My question, Mr. Vanderwood, are we approving the sign here that's, or is the sign a separate approval? Or have you reviewed the sign that's included in these plans?
I've not reviewed the sign here in detail. This was provided to us. I haven't really corresponded much with the applicant about the sign. We would review the sign under a separate.
Okay, so if we approve this, we're approving everything. We're not approving the sign.
Correct. He was still to submit a sign permit and we review it against the standards.
Again, I'm not taking any judgment with that. I just would rather have him review it first.
I can tell you that just looking at it, the signs, it appears to me that the signs on the east facade would meet our code. Signs on the west facade, because it's a secondary entrance on the back of the building, there's a limitation in terms of the overall square footage. I believe it's limited to 6 square feet.
I mean, the code says you get 1 sign per facade, but we can discuss that a little bit.
Yeah.
Again,
Again, that was just the question I wanted to ask, but we're not approving it tonight, so it doesn't have to be discussed.
Right.
Okay, I have no other questions.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, so if there's no other questions for the petitioner or the staff, want to open up the public hearings? Want to comment on this?
Somebody on Zoom here.
Waving their hand. Okay.
Michael G.
Yeah, Michael Gepfer, 10380 Oxford Place. I spoke with Mr. Vanderwood regarding the concerns that I have, and I believe some may not be as severe with this particular development, but I thought it would still be good to bring these concerns before the commission. The first one being garbage. Our nice new sidewalks surrounding Cataro, El Salto, and Harvest Room are filthy. While the building pushed up to the street hides the parking cars, it puts the garbage on display. My next concern is regarding the biking, walking community focus that the town seems to be steering towards. I don't see any bike rack at this development. And then finally, regarding these buildings adjacent to the street, as I bike past those businesses I previously mentioned at Centennial Village, the buildings block any view of cross traffic. For example, the exit from Centennial Village between Kataro and Simply Greek. As I approach that exit, I cross it blindly due to the obstruction of the building. It is one of the more dangerous crossings that I travel here in Munster. At tonight's BZA meeting, a 25-foot viewing triangle was mentioned regarding the Sitco monument sign, 25 feet being left open at an intersection for safety. Do these developments, like the one proposed here tonight, have the same safety standards at their exits? I mean, are cyclists going to have sufficient visibility while passing through the exits as they travel on Calumet? At Centennial, they certainly do not. I hope these concerns will be considered with this and future building adjacent to street development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sightlines are always a thing going in and out of properties, especially when the buildings are up close.
Is that the review town?
And also the building next door that's not on any of your plans, because we only look at the plans from the side, it's looking at the whole thing and see what you have when you look, right and left. Is there aerial on this?
So,
Mr. Chairman, this is a reminder that I'm accusing myself of this discussion.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
To Michael's question of the sight line. Let me just go back to the site plan here. There is a 25-foot site triangle required at an intersection of two public streets. That doesn't apply for a driveway. So that's not applicable in this situation, but I will say that there is a 25-foot, approximately 25-foot area here between the building and this, and the edge of the driveway. There's a at least 5-foot sidewalk, and then there's an 18-foot planting area. So there's it's now 25, 23, or 22-foot open area. And then I'll also just point out that it's showing landscaping in here, but our code requires that the landscaping be no higher than 3.5 feet.
So it'll be flowers or something like this, that's low.
It'll be, I think those are junipers. So it'll be low evergreen hedge. So that, and vehicles will be exiting south of this dotted line here. So the view from here to there should be relatively clear. On the south edge of the driveway, there is a building right there, so that would be something to keep in mind since we're exiting the south side.
Is this where we're looking at putting a median wall down Calumet Avenue in the future as part of the landscape plan?
Streetscape, yes.
Streetscape?
Yes.
Essentially.
So this could possibly be right out.
The other thing though is this
You
is
see that, have you?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
and this is taking out one of the curb cuts too into the property, which makes it a little bit safer to travel along that sidewalk.
Correct. To address the comments in regards to the trash enclosure, I know what Mike was talking about, if you drive past, they have a gated enclosure that their trash containers sit in that you can literally see off the Calumet Avenue. Our enclosure is gonna face the opposite direction, no one's gonna see this, and it's also screened by landscaping. So it's not gonna have that same detrimental look as that other enclosure has. And then to Tom's point, as far as the vision triangle, when you're exiting the site, the lane closest to the parking, that's still like about another 12 feet. So you're talking about 32 feet from the building that a car is going to be looking to its left before it makes the right or right. So the vision triangle is enough for the store being at a 0 setback.
Yeah, and then I'll just also note.
Yeah, the building south of us is also pushed back a little bit too.
Right, so the lot line is up, the Smoothie King building will be actually up here. So this building is set back from the sidewalk. The sidewalk is here, so this is all clear.
regarding the question on the bicycle racks, it looks like there are some on here, but there's a question for you, Tom. Do we have in the code, we have parking requirements per square footage. Do we have any bicycle storage requirements?
I believe it's 1 per 10 parking spaces. We're showing 3. So it requires.
I mean, you have 3 per 10 parking spaces, or you have
One place to store a bicycle per 10 parking spaces. We have 27 parking spaces and we're showing 3 bike racks. Now, as far as the bike rack goes, I mean, it's literally going to be a circular loop, so you could probably put like 4 or 5 bikes on one. Depends on if you're riding with a bunch of people and you want to share a chain, that's all going to be relevant on who's coming through. And then same thing with the vision triangle. If it's going to be more bikes and walking traffic, you're not going to have as many cars going in and out of the site. It'll just be people walking in the front and walking out. So,
Yeah, it is a, it's a sort of healthy store. So the attention to the bicycle traffic hopefully helps induce some.
that's hopefully the takeaway, hopefully.
Now, what's the use right now for the 3 units? Store. I know the Smoothie King is the one.
Smoothie King is the south unit. The other 2 have, so
What meets code right now for uses?
right now there could be 2 office uses or 1 office and 1 retail use.
Mr. Rathman, I wanted to add on that. The way that the financing structure is going to work on this, one of those spaces is going to end up being our corporate office. So basically, myself, our area managers will be taking up one of the units. So one space will be office. So it's literally just a question of who's going to be that final tenant. We're trying to get a retail user, but it's too early to tell. They want to see what the building's going to look like. They want more projections on when it's going to go up. So it's been tough to try and lock that tenant.
Now, using the white and the black masonry units, what do you anticipate the grout lines will look like?
So we have a few options. We could either go with a nice like silver, so it's like an in-between with the white, or we could literally match the brick tone and do the white tone. I would figure that was something that we could specify with Tom once we go to the building permit, on which we want to go with it. But I believe like a natural gray or silver grout would probably look the best, just to not make it.
So you won't do 3 or 2 different grout lines.
Right.
It's going to be consistent.
Simple grout line across the same, because from far away, the brick is what's going to give it most of its color.
Okay. Now you're using a white brick, and I don't know how porous that brick is. Are you using a siloxane or something on there to spray it? Because the pollution is going to be an issue, and we don't want a white building that's going to look all.
Right. We're going to have to try and have some sort of barrier on it to prevent some sort of buildup. That's why we kind of switched to this black and white model and tried to use white in the smaller portion
You
of
have
the
a lot
building.
of traffic down there, a lot of snowplow trucks, so that white brick might look
Right.
different without a sealer or some kind of spray.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we were anticipating having some sort of seal. I'm not exactly sure which one my architect's going to show on the print, but we'll definitely have something in there to avoid it deteriorating too quickly. Very good. Is the public hearing over?
Yes, can I ask a question?
Have you, in the staff report, there's 2 conditions, a 3.5 high ornamental fence. Have you talked to Tom about that? Is that something that you're okay with, or maybe discussions? That's fine. He told me it was like an oversight from our previous versions of the site plan, and it's a minor change. We're fine with accommodating that.
And also the proposed parkway trees,
Right.
smaller, okay. I have no other questions.
Yeah, that fence is just this area here. When your parking is not set back 20 feet or more, then you have to have that addition to the fence.
Is there a picture? Is that what you're talking about? Is the type of material that are going against the residential on the west side?
That's about there.
He's not installing any fence.
No fence.
Something.
So a 5-foot landscape wall.
There's a hedge here. The only screening that's required is just this hedge here.
There's going to be a 10-foot alley between us and the residents.
And there is, I believe there's already a fence on that side of the.
There is, on the resident side.
There's no real. See, there's already a
So the residents have a fence, and then you said there was an alley. Are we keeping the alley or vacating it? I'm getting older and it's late, almost past my bedtime now. I can't remember.
The alley is maintained. It's a 10-foot alley.
So we're keeping the alley.
Correct.
Okay.
So it is.
So he doesn't have a responsibility for the fence line of the residential because there's an alley buffer. 10-foot. Thank you. All right, anything else? All right, well, what do you want to do?
Mr. Chairman, go ahead, somebody else, I can't find it. Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we approve PC docket 2109, approving the preliminary plat for the one lot subdivision consolidating 8130-8138 Calumet Avenue. I also make a motion to approve PC docket 21010, the development plan for the same building at the same address, and also approve PC docket 21011, approving the final plot of a one lot subdivision consolidating the same addresses with the conditions of the 3 to 3.5 foot fence, and also the proposed parkway trees be changed to a smaller type.
Wow, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second, any discussion?
Just make sure the mechanicals are screen, gas and everything, electric and stuff on top of it.
I know we're approving the preliminary and the final plat at the same time. Is that customary or is there anything?
There's no public improvements, so there's really no reason to.
Okay.
Councilor Miller?
I'm recusing myself.
Councilor Gardner?
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Stuart Friedman?
Yes.
Roland Raffin?
Yes.
Brian Speck has recused himself as well. Chairman Baker?
Yes. All right, it passes. Congratulations, with Mr. Patel. Welcome to town.
Thank you.
All right, Smoothie Kings for everybody. All right. Next up on the agenda is finding of facts for PC 21-006, HP Munster Investment LLC, which requested the approval of development plan for the High Place Hotel at 9420 Calumet at Maple Leaf Crossings PUD.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the findings of fact as presented.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I will second that.
Second, is there any discussion? The rule says we do roll call vote, Mr. Vanderwood.
Councilor Millen?
Yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Stuart Friedman?
Yes.
Roland Raffin?
Yes.
Brian Speck?
Yes.
Chairman Baker?
Yes. All right, moving right along. Other business additional items for discussion is PC 08001 Community Resources requesting approval of an amendment to the preliminary plat for the Community Resources Inc. Phase 2. Mr. Vanderwood, where is that?
This is located.
What I know, it's Community Resources. Where is it?
It's the middle of community.
It's a Nike site, that I know. Mr. Tring, is it still called the Nike site? Is there a Nike site street?
Nope.
Killing
It
it.
is not. So, Chairman Baker, it's located right here, this sort of empty area within the middle of the community estates subdivision.
Thank you.
I can give a little bit of history on this project, and I think Torigo can give a little bit of history as well, but this project, the original plat, preliminary plat for the Community Resources in Phase 2 was approved by the Munster Plan Commission in 2011. I'm sorry, 2008. And it was never developed. I can let Don speak to the reasons why that was the case. But it was this area here in the middle of community estates. Phase 1 surrounds it. When Phase 2 was brought in originally, it included some lots that had been in Phase 1. But those were then sold and in the intervening years. And so just recently, they provided us with a revised plat that does not include those lots. So a different version of the Phase 2. And we had some discussion back and forth with the town attorney as to whether or not this was, would have to be a new plat and require a public hearing and go through those steps, or whether it could be just considered an amendment to the existing plat. And I think we finally came to the conclusion that it does have to be go through the public hearing process, primarily because the actual geographic limits of the plat have changed. So that's where we are here today. And I know there's probably some confusion because I had a staff report on the website and then I took it off. And that's why we were just having conversations internally about it. But so that being said, what they're proposing now is to kind of complete this Andrew Lane cul-de-sac and then develop 12 lots surrounding it and dedicate an area as a park outlot here on the northeast corner because it's no longer accessible from a public road because this lot 4 has been sold, so they can't put in that cul-de-sac like it's shown here. So that's it. Like I said, it's a little bit of an unusual circumstance bringing this back to the planning commission and not under any type of a preliminary hearing or public hearing. But since it was presented to us and we had it on the agenda, we thought we may as well bring it to the planning commission and let you familiarize yourself with the plat, and then you will file a formal application and move it forward. So with that, I will hand it over to Don.
Mr. Chairman, is this one of those things where you can do a preliminary and public hearing the same night over?
Yeah, I mean, technically this isn't it's not technically a preliminary hearing because we don't have an application on file for it yet, but it would be reasonable to do a public hearing at the next meeting because the point of the preliminary hearing is just to familiarize yourself with the project without taking action. So if that was the pleasure of the board, you could schedule a public hearing for next month.
Any other questions for Tom? Mr. Tring has something to add?
As Tom, he mentioned a few things, and I would like to clarify those. The original Community Resources Incorporated Phase 2 was not completed in, what was it, 2012? I don't know for sure. But the reason that it wasn't completed was because the Nike base was still there, and they had to take the Nike base apart effectively. Remove the silos, remove all of the asphalt, have all of that work done, and when they finished that work, the downturn in the economy started, and they had not sold any lots within community estates. There were very few lots that have been constructed, and very few lots that have been built on out there. So they elected to put them on hold. And also, one of the main reasons that it didn't get completed was because this was one of John Wybeck's big things, and John Wybeck passed away. With that being said, I understand that there are issues and we have to go to a preliminary or a public hearing, which we're fine with that. So I guess at this point, I'm requesting permission to advertise for a public hearing. The engineering is primarily done. It needs to be modified a little bit, but it shouldn't be hard to do.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, the old Nike site, is there any environmental impact or the soil's good, things have been remediated, or?
There was a phase 2 environmental impact study just recently completed, which is why Community Foundation, Community Hospital is elected to help through this project now. It was found that there were no problems with it. I would assume that that would be something that would be submitted to you for issues.
The purpose of the park area outlot A, is that going to be deeded to the town?
Yes.
Why would the town want that property?
Well, if they don't want it, we don't have to meet it, but it's part of the town ordinance that you have to give up some parkland.
But
And they're
Tom,
all-
I would take that back to staff, and I don't think we want a piece of property along Columbia Avenue with no parking.
There already is a park area that has been dedicated, which is shown on the plat. And then just below that is a stormwater retention easement. That if you're out there, you don't know the difference between the easement or the park area, so the whole park, so.
But it's also park area in lieu of contribution. Again, I would just have staff look at that, just make sure that that's really what you want. Yeah. That's less than a third of an acre. Yeah. Again, it's something to look at. Again, let park department and staff look at it.
Right, so the process for that, as I'm sure you're aware, is that the park board makes a decision as far as whether or not they would accept a fee in lieu of the parkland. So that there is that provision in the code to not accept the parkland, just accept the fee.
Are there any ideas from the applicant of what the use would be in that park that would serve the community?
There isn't, honestly, there isn't a park in the subdivision. Pretty much every subdivision in Munster has a park for kids to play.
I would agree with that, Leanne. It's just, this is right along Columbia Avenue, and there's no access to the park, and I'm not sure how much community estates would be able to access that property.
Yeah.
Again, it's just something to look at. I'm not saying it's.
No, I was just saying what, yeah, I agree with you, but just there isn't one there yet, so.
Excuse me, I'm sorry for interrupting, but there is access off of Richard McCower Drive. That park would be tied into this, it would just be an addition to the markers.
Off of where?
There's access. Richard McCower Drive.
This is the existing. This is the park
That part.
area that's already been dedicated right here.
Yeah.
And then this is the proposed area that would be dedicated as part of here.
Okay, maybe I'm just looking at too close of a plan. Again, it's something to look at.
Chairman Baker? Yes, sir. I need to recuse myself from this discussion as well because I'm on this community resource board, so I'm not really sure why I attended tonight.
We're glad you did.
Are we voting on something here? No.
This would just be if you wanted to sort of waive the formal preliminary hearing and just go straight to a public hearing next month.
My opinion. I know the board would love to do that because they would love to shovel it.
Well, if you want to do that, Mr. Rath, then a motion might be a good option.
Can I just make one point about the subdivision? There is one item that would need to be included in the approval, which would be a waiver of the maximum length of a cul-de-sac. If you read that report before, I withdrew it from the agenda page. We believe everything on this drawing complies with our codes and standards. We haven't reviewed the drainage yet, but we know that it was done for the previous version. I'm sure we believe it will be fine when it'll be submitted. It'll be reviewed by a town engineer. Everything else on the plat is fine. We just did notice that the cul-de-sac, our maximum length in our subdivision ordinance is 600 feet. It's just kind of top of mind because we dealt with this at the Castle Drive Fairway Edition. And this cul-de-sac, I believe, is like 650 feet. So it exceeds our maximum length by approximately 50 feet. So subdivision conditions or subdivision standards can be waived by the plan commission upon approval of the plat. So if you did approve it as shown here, then that would be something that you'd have to waive.
At the next meeting.
Right. At the time of approval.
Tom, if I recall, there was also an international firefighter standard length of cul-de-sac. Wasn't that a 700-foot recommendation?
I don't remember. I do recall that when we went to the site plan review committee with this project, Our fire chief reviewed it, and the length of the cul-de-sac requires a certain radius for the end of it, so that a fire truck can turn around, and it does meet that standard.
Because the Castle Drive, that was 1,300 feet or something.
Yeah, that was beyond even that radius. The radius.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to waive the preliminary hearing, set this for public hearing next month.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Is there any discussion?
The only thing I would have is make sure that the staff does review this, have plenty of time to review this, so we have a full staff report before the public hearing.
Any other discussion? There's a motion and a second, Mr. Vanderwood.
Councilor Mellon,
Yes.
Councilor Gardner,
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Brian Specht, recused himself, and Chairman Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe did research whether I can vote on it.
Thank you very much.
See you next month.
Thank you. All right, next item is Plan Commission discussion of density standards.
This is quite a rodeo tonight.
Yeah. Okay. What's that?
You don't get overtime.
No.
Can I,
I wouldn't even want it.
how much time do the students need to prove they've actually been here? They kind of,
I just need a really quick picture.
All right, come up here and get pictures.
you guys, get you out of here.
You should get extra credit. Who's a teacher for this class?
No, she should all stay here and listen to density discussion.
Is this for Lopez's class?
This is Mr. Gordon. Mr. Gordon.
Quick.
Yeah.
All of you have like the same amount of power or sort of like a head honcho.
Oh, Billy is the man. He's a chairman.
He's the chairman.
I'm the chair.
So he runs. the
So
meeting.
I'm not the head honcho. I have a one vote, just like everybody else, but I'll do most of the interaction with staff. Any other questions? This is the best part of the whole damn night for me.
You guys want to
Yeah,
take a
you
picture
can-
with the board?
You can just take it.
Come up
Line
here
up.
and then the board, yeah, line up here and then be good. What's the homecoming theme tomorrow?
Tomorrow for seniors,
John.
red costume.
Oh.
And what, eight,
Yeah.
and, Friday, Thursday? Okay. Oh, it's
Are you
teacher
guys
day on
all-
Friday. You have to recuse yourself.
I recuse myself.
Everybody here. What about you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you need a picture?
Yeah, you.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you have Tom?
Tom, take the picture.
I'm sure he knows how to use an iPhone.
He's this handsome guy.
You gotta use your face every time.
Oh, here, wait, you could just go.
All right, make sure you have a mask if you get dinged for that, or if we have to wear one, because I don't want to get detention or anything.
Thank you so much.
Backstage.
Okay, say civil servant. All right, perfect.
All right, don't make fun of us on Snapchat later.
Yeah.
Don't post that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I thought
Okay, last item on the agenda has to do with our ongoing discussion of the density standards for mixed-use development. I tried to summarize in this report what I thought maybe the main points were of our conversation last month. And so I'll just outline what I thought the takeaways were. And based on those, I've got two kind of alternative recommendations that I think we could implement. And we'll talk about each one of those. So my understanding of the conversation from last month was that we want to, as a whole, the Planning Commission wants to ensure that any mixed-use project with a residential component in town will not exceed the capacity of our infrastructure or strainer services such as police and fire. We also know that, two, we don't have complete information about the capacities of the infrastructure and our services. So we don't know if we really are able to say, well, if exceed X number of whatever, then that's more than we can handle. So we have incomplete information. And thirdly, we have specifically concerns about the ability of the schools to accommodate an increased number of students that could be the result of a project with a high level of residential density. And then finally, Plan Commission supports two actions. One, an immediate modification to the zoning ordinance to increase the oversight and review of mixed-use projects. And then a subsequent revision that would be based on more research and outreach to get the information that we don't have, and to have the conversations with the different stakeholders that we want to involve in the process. Through, and I think this was maybe me reaching a little bit, but through a comprehensive planning process that, a solution that would potentially limit the intensity and the locations of mixed-use development. So that would be that sort of 96 units per acre, which I think some of us are comfortable with. And then also the location, so where on the map do we want to do it? Right now, it's pretty much across the map in all the old commercial districts. Do we want to bring that back? And so I think when we go through that process, we can identify some of those numbers and then the locations where we want to see that. So we can be a little more fine-grained in our application of mixed-use development.
Can I just clarify that when you say when we go through that process, did you say comprehensive planning?
Yeah, that would be my thought, is that would be a good opportunity. That was raised at the last meeting. That would be a great opportunity to, typically when you do that, you do public outreach. So you're doing workshops with residents. You're also doing stakeholder interviews. You're talking to schools, you're talking to property owners in town, developers, talking to all the people that you think have a potentially meaningful input on the subject. And I know that we've had a conversation, at least internally, and my sense is that it's been coming from the council, that it's time to do that, do a new comprehensive plan. So if we're going to embark on that within the next year, or even 6 months, then I think we're right at the point where we can hold off on any change where we're actually getting into specific properties and finding property owners and people that were changing the zoning on the property, because that gets a lot more complex. I think it also opens the door to a lot of more demonstrants and opposition if we were to say rezone somebody's property from one district to another.
Let me make it time-wide, you're okay?
Well, if we did an overall kind of like sweeping overhaul of our code like we did in 2019, there's less notice to a certain degree. It's more of a general notice than an individual type of notice. The other thing is that, if we go through this comprehensive plan, we have a good basis on which to make our decisions and make our judgments about different things.
So the town that was just brought up, we have a basis to evaluate whether or not that ought to be.
That's a PUD though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, the comprehensive plan, we will be talking about things like that, like what types of development do we want to see? Where do we want to see it? What is our capacity for X type of development? So what are we missing as far as, like when we did the zoning ordinance, one of the things we did was we made the hotels a conditional use, which they hadn't been before. So
I like what you're saying about public outreach, for example, and all stakeholders, and we can actually have data to say, here's what not only residents, but other stakeholders of our town want. We don't want another hotel. We want 5 more hotels. But now we've gone through the process and
Understand, back to where we're at right now.
Yeah.
With this.
So that's the sort of thing that's down the road that I think we can all agree that is something that we want to do. But in order to do something fairly quickly and without a whole lot of controversy, I think what we can do is what we've recommended. I've got 2 alternative recommendations. they're both using the conditional use tool that we have. And the first is, so just, I think we all know what conditional use is, but I'll just briefly describe it for those who may not. The conditional use is basically a use that's permitted under certain conditions. And the Board of Zoning Appeals reviews every application for conditional use against that criteria, and then they make a recommendation to the town council, and the town council makes the final decision. We talked about the development plan when we approved the development plan, and the question was raised, well, if we're not that specific on some of these things, can we really deny a project based on it? And I think the answer to that is yes, but a conditional use is more, gives us more power and more leverage and more oversight. So I think it takes us one step further to that, which is I think where people are wanting to go. So, that's the process, though. It's a Board of Zoning Appeals recommendation to the council. The other thing that I was thinking, which I didn't put in this report, but it's something that we put in the code when we did last time. We've never used this, but there's a provision in the Indiana state law that allows for a joint hearing. So if we did have a large mixed-use project come in and we wanted to kind of get the plan commission involved in the same way right at the outset, we could actually do a joint hearing for that project where the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Plan Commission would both be in the room hearing the presentation, answering questions, asking questions, and hearing all the opinions. And then the Board of Zoning Appeals would vote on the conditional use, and the Plan Commission could vote on the development plan. But that would allow, we haven't really done it yet, but it would be a good way to get everybody involved if that was a concern too, that the Plan Commission wanted to weigh in early on in the process. So that's available to us as well. And we don't have to make any changes to do that. We just have to decide to do it.
It's called the Avengers approach.
Nice.
So the criteria for the conditional use is listed there, but I just wanted to point out that it does specifically call out whether or not under bullet point 5, it will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police and fire protection, drainage structures, refuse disposal, and so on and so forth. And with the conditional use, the burden of proof is more on the applicant than it is on the board to disprove something. With the development plan, there's more of a assumption that if they meet the zoning ordinance, unless the board identifies something, it's more difficult to deny a project. With the conditional use, the burden of proof is more on the applicant to say, this is how I'm meeting these conditions. And so it kind of shifts the balance of power a little bit in favor of the town. So what I'm proposing here is I just came up with 2 alternatives. And the first one is just simply, we would designate all the residential in the CD4A, CD4B, and CD5 as a conditional use. As it says in the report, right now, the only residential that's allowed in either one of those districts is the residence portion of a mixed use or a mixed use, live, work, or flex building. So right now, the only time you could do any residential would be as a component of a mixed use building. This would just say that all the standards are in place in exactly the same way, but if you want to do a mixed use building with residential, then it's kind of conditional use. So you could still do a 4-story all commercial building. You could still do a 4-story office with retail on the bottom. If you want to do a condo building, you'd still do ground floor commercial, but you get conditional use to do the residential above, and that would be in all the mixed use districts throughout town. So that would be a very That would be a much more restrictive alternative than alternative two. Alternative two is similar, except where it says we would designate the residence portion of the 5th and 6th stories of a mixed-use building to be conditional use. And what that would do is it would say in CD4A and CD4B, you can still do the mixed-use district or mixed-use project by right. You have the ground floor commercial, but you can have residential on 2, 3, and 4. And then in the CD5 district, you could do the same. But if you wanted to build a 6, if you wanted to put a 5th floor of residential or 6th floor of residential on top, then that would be the conditional use that would have to go back to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So what that does is it's not, obviously it's not as restrictive as the first alternative, but it would limit the most intense type of mixed use development that would be permitted currently. So that would pull that back, and that would say, we're still open to it, but generally speaking, we really want to just see 4 stories max. Once you can prove that you're not going to. So that would be, those are the two alternatives that I'm presenting. I'll answer your questions.
Right now until we come up with a new density standard or a new height standard.
I would agree with that, because if things slip, if we don't, and then we find different, we have different findings in that outreach, then we've got to, it's all over the place, because we have, you know, we would find out and we're like, oops, that one, that last project wouldn't have the desire, based on what we find out. So I agree with that.
We've been done any research regarding Cambridge Courts, White Oak Woods, or condos between Whiting or Highland and Munster on their density and when they were installed. Okay, if I think that would help us in this discussion, knowing what units per acre and all that kind of stuff is, and at the same time we can take a look at checking with the police department on what kind of issues they've had with those 3 developments that have gone in. Talk to the school possibly about what that affected them. Again, not in a real formal way, but at least having that as part of our arsenal, just to consider and see what's happening. But you know, I'm fine with scheduling a public hearing and approving one of these 2 options.
I know it's getting late and we can continue discussion, but in the meantime, I'd like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the text amendments describing alternative 1.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I guess the question I come back to is, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Is it the mixed use, which was part of the zoning, you know, updates, or is it the over intense burden of really high density stuff on the town?
I think I think it's kind of both a little bit, because we don't know what, so any of these, if all of what we haven't seen yet, and I think this is what we're going to get into when we do that whole, the plan, the outreach and everything, is that if all of the properties that are designated currently in the form-based code is CD4A, B, and CD5, if they were to be developed fully, we don't know what that would look like. So that's why I was going with option 1. We may very well say, no, it's all great in CD4A and B, but I wouldn't want to, if we're taking this opportunity to, you know, slow down, get some real hard answers, we might as well do that instead of going, you know, because we're going to find out a lot in the same. Well, there are a lot of unanswered questions as well we found out through the last couple.
I was surprised, spent some time over the last month driving around Frankfurt, LaGrange, and Hinsdale, and density. I didn't see in their main traffic areas or their main road areas, which were all this development would go. I didn't see anything over 2 to 3 stories in major streets of town. And I documented by taking pictures of the didn't say it today, but there were no 4 or 5-story buildings. They were 2 and 3. And Tom, what they did, it looked like they got rid of some of their parking requirements where there was more street parking and less parking lots. So yes, I did park and walk from the street to the restaurant in Frankfurt.
Do those places have parking garages?
No, none of them did. If you want to look at it, the first one's Hinsdale packet, the second one is Frankfurt, and the third one,
I could look at
the third one is LaGrange.
Well, to your point, Roland, what you found, it's interesting because I think this is what we were going for.
Right.
And these were the romantic kind of sketches we got. And seeing it in life, like, I think we want something more quaint like that than 4, 5, 6 story buildings.
I came home today and I hit LaGrange. I hit Hinsdale and Frankfurt before I left. So.
Yeah, like this is what I want to see on the streets. I don't want to. Yeah,
That's
it's really
Frankfurt,
tall,
right
yeah.
at the corner, Francesca.
And that one's only 2 stories, and this one's 2. so-
Now
Did you do a demographic analysis of these communities too?
Demographic as a what? Income and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I would guess we're similar to Frankfurt. The range are probably not far off. I think so.
So what would that have to do with how you want the building up?
A lot. I mean, if you have a higher capacity, more people, you would want higher buildings.
Do you think we're bigger than Frankfurt?
No, we're smaller.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's what you want to try to accomplish. Just because it's 3 stories now doesn't mean in 5 years you don't want to have more. Now you can do it as conditional.
Yeah, it's conditional. That's what I was saying. Anything can be allowed. But we're just putting the control back in our side of the court. That's
Yeah,
all.
'cause these all look the same.
No,
They're
don't.
nice.
Yeah.
But they're, they look the same. That's the model. I thought the model was LaGrange as far as how we were looking at Calumet Avenue and Ridge Road. Because this is what he was talking about and what the look should be for how you want to see the buildings, right?
But also, I mean, that's
Well, that's what this is.
right.
You know, there's no curb cut,
Right.
there's no parking.
Yeah.
This is what you're doing, and everybody's driving, 8 miles an hour.
Those towns don't have parking garages, but they all have public parking lots. All of them have public parking garages.
Well, that was my question.
Well,
It could be a garage.
That's where I was downtown, right, Frankfurt area was, Well, LaGrange right downtown, LaGrange didn't have it. I parked in the street and walked there right by the.
Downtown LaGrange has multiple public parking lots.
Yeah, they have parking lots, not
Garage.
Correct.
Right. But we also have the property at Banner that can be used as a corridor, right?
Yeah, but if you're gonna do something like this, you're gonna have to have some type of cover. Whether it's parking lots or parking garage, you can't expect to have all of those buildings and just have street parking.
But Brian, the way this is, and the way our code is now, we can have these be like this, but four stories of no, you know what I mean? So we've got the same issue.
Well, I completely agree. I grew up in Hickory, lived in Hickory Hills for 7 years. We was downtown LaGrange all the time. That's where I took the train when I would go
Gotcha.
downtown. So
Yeah.
I'm extremely familiar. We have a
Right
very,
here.
very close friend who lives in LaGrange.
Is
Within
this?
walking distance of it. So
There's
I've been to all those restaurants in downtown
Park
LaGrange. I know
three.
where the parking
Yeah,
lots are at,
okay.
too. The park.
I got you.
Off the main. So
I see. Yeah,
But again, here's, no, this is Mishawaka. By their thing. Yeah, that's Mishawaka.
But you're using these to get at the size thing, and I don't see it because you could build this building, and right next to it is the Smoothie King. So where you have certain amount of continuity in some of these downtowns, we don't have that.
that's what Roland and I were saying at that one, who were we talking about? Oh, I know, when the stanza was up, we said, we need to make a plan so people,
So the plan should also be about the curb cuts, because you want to eliminate those if you want to have this walkable scenario in the downtown. So you have to move those curb cuts. And when somebody wants to come in and either buy the building or get a permit, that was one of the things we tried about 10 years ago and say, hey, anything over $25,000, you got to do a whole new site plan. And that was not well received.
well, we kind of looked at it in the streetscape, so we've got all these things, I feel like we've got all these pieces, and we're almost, you know what I mean? Like, because we're taking out curb cuts with that street
Is that something you want or not? I don't know, you know, just,
But I think.
it doesn't
My point
matter.
is, I think if you're gonna have this, and you're going to not have curb cuts, and you want sidewalks and everything, the first thing you gotta do is that parking.
Yeah.
You're telling Guy Costanza, you know, that he's gonna have this ride in and ride
Yeah.
out. Well, you know, get rid of, don't make him have to have parking.
Yeah,
You have a public parking lot along there, so you can tell these people, well, you've got a public parking lot, you don't need your parking, you don't need to ride in, ride out.
That's a
You've
good
got the
point.
public parking. And everybody, because we're a walking community, everybody can walk to the restaurant.
Well,
Yeah,
the guy
yeah,
Costanza
no, I got
property
it. Yeah, you're right.
received 7 variances. So we could have very easily said you can't do that.
Yeah,
You know, so he, you know, it was in the code that he can't do that property. That we wanted something else done with that property, and we gave him 7 variances. So we had, everything was in the code there to say, no, make it nicer building, do it something better. And if it doesn't fit there, yeah, ask for public parking, you have to share parking in the back, but we gave him 7 variances.
well, one of the reasons too, I think, and Tom, I mean, not, no, is that the perfect place for shared parking was with, behind Marcos, but I guess they don't speak or like
Right,
each
but
other,
but
or,
that's shared
but I mean, I
parking.
know
That's-
I'm saying that
That's
it
not
could-
public
it's
parking.
not public, but,
You're asking somebody to give up his parking for a guy that he doesn't like.
well,
I mean, the town would have to go in there and say, hey, we're gonna buy the parking, and we're gonna make it a public parking lot.
I think that's a good idea, yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think you're all right. I think all these pieces need to come together, but that's the difficult part is putting them together.
Well, that's why maybe we need to plan with Manor Street, maybe public parking. You might have to use that, I mean, at Main Street in Columbia, they have a public parking lot up there. That's gonna be something.
But that's what Reed was talking about, like block by block, because every block is different. I mean, just like we talked about way back when, north of Ridge Road on Calumet Avenue is different than, you know, over by Performing Arts. I mean, those are just different scenarios, and one size fit all.
Different for shoes.
Absolutely. So one size fit all thing does, in my opinion, doesn't really accomplish what you want, because it's almost like making little neighborhoods. So everybody wants little neighborhoods. All right, so this neighborhood, here's kind of what we're looking for. This neighborhood, this is what we're looking for. And then you kind of work with both what you want to see in future buildings and also what you already have. Because you remember, you always have to deal with the people that own the stuff now that may want to upgrade their facility, but don't know what has to happen and don't want to go through this process.
Yep.
So how do you appease them and somebody new that wants to come in and knock something down? Well, wait a minute, you might all love the building I want to knock down. Now I want to come in, I just bought it, I want to knock it down. No, wait a minute, you can't do that. What? How come? So, I mean, well, here's why, here's what we're trying to accomplish, but they should know that before they write big checks.
And I agree.
The perfect, you know, Jay Leisure, been in my office, and, you know, he would love that green space that we just took there by the marathon and make that a public parking lot. You know, get rid of the green space, throw in a parking lot, but you don't need it now, but as that development goes up, you know, we're gonna be concerned about parking there. It's the same as you're concerned about parking at Centennial, so, and over by Five Guys and everything else, you know, have a public parking. That's a perfect spot to start with.
Anywhere you go to Naperville, they have the parking lot. I was up at Michigan State and I couldn't, you know, rent a parking lot to go to
Naperville's got a
CVS.
parking garage.
That's what I mean. And I was in a parking garage to go to CVS, you know, around the corner, you know. It was-
Highland just built one, right? Highway and Academy. They just improved
Yeah, they
it. They improved it. It was there before, but it was.
It's a public park. It's public, it's not a parking garage.
No,
It's a lot.
It's a service.
Service park, yeah, service
But
park.
it's,
Okay, so we did the discussion because we got a motion in a second.
Yeah, so, with these pictures that we have here, the amendments, does that stop, the amendment alternative 1, does that stop all mixed use? Unless it's going through the conditional use procedure?
Yes.
yeah,
So none of this stuff will be possible.
only if they're putting residential.
I mean, are these,
Some of those are
To your
residential, some are
point.
Some are offices, some are not.
Yes, to your point, Steve, you didn't propose any alternatives that would have been like two or three story by right in the 4th through 6th floor would be conditional use. That's
You could
not
also, you could amend, alternative two could become, like if we wanted to allow this sort of thing, with 1 or 2 floors of residential, then you can say instead of 5th and 6th, it would be 3 through 6 or 4.
I think it's like we don't even want 4 when we go through. I mean, I don't, 4 stories.
I'm just gonna point out, this is the Grange. This is where you're looking at the Grange.
How am I gonna finance this?
The main downtown was really small, but once you get right on the edge of the downtown, it's really very tall buildings.
I don't know what I'm gonna get. I don't know if this is residential or off.
I just think we
Go
need
down
to,
LaGrange Road,
we need to drill down farther.
North or south.
south. Doesn't right there. Yep. There's your downtown LaGrange. Well, that's Ogden Avenue now. That's where all the restaurants are at right there. And if you go to a block west, that's where your parking lots are. Right there.
Well, I mean, one thing I will say is that we are gonna get a parking lot.
For the
Where?
train, yeah.
Which, you know, there's no reason why when the commuters leave at 6, 7, why they can't go public parking for the residents. But yeah, I mean, I think density in some of these downtowns is kind of at the edge of the downtown because that's where we have the ability to develop a little bit more. rather than slower.
I guess I'm fine looking at this conditional use. I do think though, our current code with some of these, whatever it is, 12 units per acre, I think and I think that's why, you know, I asked you, if we can look at those current developments that we have and see what we have, I think it'll give us a better handle on what our current code actually tells us. I think the 96 units per acre, yeah, I think that's a huge concern. But again, I think the 12 or whatever we have in there, I think is similar to what we have, you know, again, and we're even talking like Cambridge is strictly retail, you know, residential, where these would be part commercial. But again, I don't have a problem with conditional use, especially because I think it allows us to really delve into what we're really looking for better. And I think we do need to have more of a preferred idea of what we're trying to get there. I do think there's going to be some of those areas that are going to have to become, if they become a little bit more denser along Ridge Road, I think it only helps some of the businesses along the road there too, and the potential for some redevelopment. But again, I think it's going to be few and far between on Ridge Road because you have so many different owners and everything else.
Well, I think with the conditional use, you're making it harder to do a particular type of development. So the turn that we made with the zoning ordinance, when we made those changes, the idea was to make it easier, to make it by right, so that a developer wouldn't have to jump through as many hoops. Not as a way of letting bad projects come in or let the wrong project come in, but I thought was that we had a consensus that this is what we wanted to do, and so let's make it easy for somebody to do what we want to do. What this is going to do is it's going to pull that back a little bit and say we're not really sure if we want this. But I guess I would say if there is something that we're all, or that you are all sure that you want to see, and that we would want to encourage, then I think that's something that we would be a good idea to leave in as a use without the conditional use.
Well, but isn't this is just a pause, by us saying, using alternative 1, it's just a pause for 6 months so we can figure things out, and then it's not like we're doing that so that we're not changing the code until we actually figure out what we want.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean this is
not a permanent decision that can never be reversed or modified.
This is just a pause, and hopefully it wouldn't be more than 6 months, so to a year max. I mean,
could that be part of the amendment, that it's a pause, right? The risk is we don't get around to the commercial plan.
Could it be it's
I would just keep it in there, and when you're ready to change it, you're gonna have to come up with an idea before you change it anyways. So how quickly we want to work on it and sort of putting our mind to it, or hiring the right people to be able to bring in as a consultant to help us out.
And this conditional use that we're talking about, these 7 or 8, 10 points, is actually in the existing code, it's just now it's under conditional use. So it makes it a step harder
It makes it,
on the developer.
it makes it a lengthier process. It doesn't prohibit it. So if somebody came in and they had a great project that the town wanted to do, then by all means, we can still do it.
How much of a deterrent is it for developers who might be looking at doing this sort of stuff to have it as a conditional use versus a permitted use?
Well,
Would they go to Sherrville because they don't have to go through hoops or something?
I don't know if anyone's gonna do a mixed use project anywhere else. If they're coming to Munster to do a mixed use project, they're not gonna take it to Sherrville. Because there's no reason to do that. They're not gonna go to Hammond. Munster's kind of a unique situation right now because we do have the trade out. We do have, we're a very desirable community. So the types of developments that we're gonna see in this mixed use sphere, I think are gonna be unique to us.
I guess I'd like to see some proposals so we can start to imagine what it looks like here. So that's my only concern is I think it's fine to make a pause. I would like to ensure that we're doing the comprehensive plan, so we unpause it or we redesign it.
Oh, yeah, I know, I would want it to be for, yeah, I know, I think we're all motivated. We all have mentioned different components that we really want to focus in on, and I think that we're motivated to speed it along.
So too.
Yeah.
I would say that so having it as a permitted use is very welcome to that type of use. If it is a conditional use, it's kind of, when we would meet with them at the staff level, so I really want to do this, we'd be like, well, we might be able. Probably what we'd say is it's gonna have to be really good. And even then, I don't know if it'll get.
We may come out with great timing when it comes to the train. We're looking at like the end of 2024 for that running. So like taking a pause of 6 months to a year, then we have it nailed down. I mean, the train's not here yet, so that developments, they're not really, the marriage isn't, the timing's not quite there.
If we're gonna do it, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm ready to go home. I don't know about you guys, but
We're gonna do, what's it? If we're gonna do it, what's it?
now's the time to do it. So waiting to that's what.
Yeah, if you're gonna come up with a plan for parking and everything for that train area, that downtown area that you want, now's the time to do it before the train gets in.
Yeah, I think we ought to do that. If we're gonna press pause on this sort of development, I think we ought to think about that in principle for new hotels and other things that are out of the ordinary. If we're saying let's press pause until we figure out what our plan is and what's gonna happen with the train. I mean, this sort of ordinance is an indication that that's where our mindset is right now. Right, we're pressing pause on everything that isn't a permitted use.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Do you want to vote on it or are we still discussing?
That was my front.
Okay, Mr. Vanderwood, calling for a vote.
Bill,
What?
should we vote on having a public hearing next month?
Yes. That's the motion.
It's either alternative one or two.
Alternative one.
Yeah.
So the process is, I think everyone knows this already, but the process is.
Yes.
Public hearing next month,
Yes,
favorable or unfavorable, or no recommendation of council, and the council has to change.
I vote still yes.
Okay, Councilor Nolan?
yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Stuart Friedman?
Yes.
Bill Madden? Brian Specht?
Yes.
Chairman Baker?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And a second, Mr. Vanderwood.
Councilor Nolan?
Yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Stuart Friedman?
Yes.
One Chairwoman Rathman,
Yes.
Lawrence Beck,
Yes.
Chairman Baker.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for helping us make Munster a better community.
These are nice pictures. Thanks for all your interest.
Golly.